Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Good morning. Welcome to Friday. Welcome to the program, and welcome to Memorial Day weekend in Canada and the United States. That's what it is. That's what I'm going to call it now, Memorial Day weekend, because in the U.S. it is, of course, Memorial Day on Monday. In Canada, our Memorial Day will actually be Sunday, the 31st of May, which is the date of the final game of the Memorial Cup. But actually, Kitchener beginning the Memorial Day weekend in Canada with Game 1 of the Memorial Cup tonight. So, wow, it is, as they were saying on All News Morning, it's Memorial Game Day in Kitchener, and you don't get to say that too often, do you? So here we are, and it is very exciting to find. Well, we're not. I was going to say we're here. We're about 11 and a half hours away from the beginning of coverage tonight on 570 News Radio. The coverage starts at 8:30 with Mike Farwell. And that's why I'm here today, because Mike is in Kelowna, as we spoke on the show yesterday, and he's been there since Wednesday, and is going to be there for the duration. And you know, it's tough in sports, because if you're too positive, people say you're jinxing it. Like if you say, "Oh, we got this," you know, we're going all the way, and people say, "Don't say that, you're jinxing it." But then, if you don't, you know, then people say, "What's the matter? Don't you support the team?" So I don't know which kind of tact to take here, but I'm going to go with being overly positive. How's that? Feeling good about the team and feeling good about the chances and all that kind of stuff, as we did yesterday when we were talking to Mike. So yeah, Game 1 tonight, and again, to just go over the format of the Memorial Cup, it's the winners of the OHL, the Q, and the Western Hockey League, and then the host city is invited, their team is invited, and they get a bye into the tournament. As I said yesterday, out of the 40-some years of the history of this format, the host city has actually won the Memorial Cup 11 times, so never to be discounted as a weak link or anything like that. The Kelowna Rockets are a good team this year. As Mike pointed out yesterday, they haven't played since they got knocked out of the playoffs a couple of weeks ago. So and we saw it last night with Carolina and Montreal, the rest versus rust kind of situation where, you know, Montreal had just clinched and Carolina had been off for, what was it, over 10 days, I think it was. And they were a little sleepy last night as Montreal wins. And even the coach of Carolina said, yeah, we, you know, all that time off, we just didn't come ready to play, you know, so difficult to say how strong the Kelowna Rockets might be. But as I said yesterday too, everybody in the league is you know, teams are better and they make the playoffs and they go all the way and they win they win their league and all those kind of things. But everybody's good. Everybody's good. Everybody's got skill. And the thing we love about sports is the unpredictability, the on any given night kind of mentality of that. So nevertheless, go Rangers. Tonight, as I said, coverage starts at 8:30. The pregame starts at 8:30 and the puck drop at 9 o'clock tonight, which of course in British Columbia is 6 o'clock. And I was thinking about that too, because West Coast, 6 o'clock, I'm sure they would prefer an 8 o'clock start in Kelowna, or even a 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock, probably a little early for Kelownians. What are the Kelownians called? Kelownites? I'm going to have to look that up, which reminds me of something else I'll get to, but nevertheless, they have to, 6 o'clock is kind of the median time for them. It's not too early. You can still have your day and make it to the game if you're in Kelowna. But also when they play on the West Coast, it doesn't matter what league, what sport, you have to accommodate the majority of the population of the country, which lives Kitchener and East. That's at least half the country, if not 2/3 of the country. And you can't ignore that. So you can't, for all of us privileged center of the universe Ontarians, Southern Ontarians, and East, you can't say, well, sorry, your game is going to start at 11 o'clock. The only time that happens, the odd hours, are, football and Europe, right? Or cricket in Europe. They start whenever we want, and we get up at 2 a.m. or watch a game at 9 a.m. because it's in Europe. But just on North America, the West Coast always kind of has to accommodate. I'm sure they're not happy about that, but they also have to accommodate us. So 9 o'clock is kind of the medium. Okay, it's not too late. It's not, if the game goes long or into overtime or anything like that, it's going to be a late night for us. But otherwise, that's the medium. So just to remind you that it all starts at 8:30 with Mike Farwell tonight on 570 News Radio. And dare I say, if you want to get out and kind of have a community crowd experience of watching the game, there are several, and I'm not going to list them because then I'll forget somebody or somebody's not going to be on the list. But if you just do a simple Google search of watch parties, there are several around the region, and in many of them in licensed establishments where a beverage might be also available. So you can do that, or of course, just all the action. As I said yesterday, there's something about a hockey game or a baseball game that I absolutely love on radio. It's just the word pictures and so personal. And Mike Farwell certainly knows how to do that. So we've got all the coverage we will of every game, and it starts tonight at 8:30. So Memorial Day weekend in Canada for the Memorial Cup. Here's Andre calling the show early this morning. Hey, Andre.
Hey, good morning, Larry. It's been a while. Happy to hear from you.
Nice. And, thank you.
Yes. And I heard you talk to the Grand Poobah yesterday.
Yes, sir.
It's nice about that. And game day, baby. And very excited because I talked to my son. He's 11. And he was wondering who's going to win between Quebec and Ontario. And even if I come from there, and it was my dream to play for a lot of good teams in Quebec that I know of in junior. But I have to go with the Kitchener Rangers, not because it's in my heart, but just because of how perfect the team is, the organization is. And no matter who they face, I think they're perfect. So like Kyle said yesterday, I think that Kitchener Rangers is going to win it all. And two, thank you very much for mentioning about Montreal. Probably why Mark Douglas is not working this morning. He probably had a good party last night with Chef D. So, I can't wait to hear what you have to say today, Larry. It's been a while, so this is the mic is yours, and hopefully you'll make a little mess in his room here. Oh, no, you're at home, right?
That's right. I do the show from home. For a number of reasons, but I do. Andre, I want to ask you about Montreal.
Yes.
I'm torn because I want a Canadian team to win. Montreal was the last Canadian team. I'm not a snob when it comes to the Habs. I love them equally compared to Maple Leafs, whatever. But what are their chances? Are they good?
Carolina is hot on the goalie, and I believe Edmonton and Colorado this year. But every time I've seen a Canadian game happening since day one, it's the heart of the passion of Montreal, and they can do miracles. And I do believe that they can win it in 7. And my dream, like Paul Fixie, is to see the Nordiques in Montreal. That would be my dream.
Isn't it interesting? Now, was it this year or every year that the Avalanche, for a game, they wear the Nordique uniform? Yes,
I heard that.
Isn't that great? When I see that, I'm so nostalgic when I see the clip of modern day team wearing the full Nordique uniform, helmets, everything. It's always so cool for me to see. But
it was a shame that Quebec, and at the time that the population couldn't pay for them. So unfortunately, they moved over there, and it was heartbroken. But then when Patrick Roy went over there, and they brought a lot of the team over there, and they produce, and it's nice to have a piece of Canadian in the States, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel, this is off topic, but I kind of feel the same way about the Expos. Like maybe one day bring them back.
Oh, Larry, I love you.
All right.
Yippee!
Yeah, that's right. That's the one. Thank you, Andre.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, man. And go Habs, go. My first professional baseball game live in person was the Expos, visiting some friends in Montreal, and they're like, "You want to go to an Expo game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Major League Baseball. I've never seen one. I'm a hayseed," and went, and it was despite the questionable confines of the Big O, their stadium, it was still great to be part of this huge event, which was a Major League Baseball game, and it was the Expos. So always a soft spot, and they were before the Jays. So even growing up as a kid, as a little kid out in the prairies, you had Expos hats. You got an Expo baseball hat, and that was what you wore because it was Canada's team for so long. And anyway, off topic from how do we get here? I don't know, but there we go. But for the Habs too, just a quick note, I wasn't cheering against the Habs as much as I was kind of pulling secretly for Buffalo. And again, not because I'm a Maple Leafs anti-Habs guy. I've never been that person. Loved Montreal as a kid. Many players on the Canadiens were heroes to me, as were Maple Leafs and others. But Buffalo, they're just like, what is the sports curse that is on Buffalo? Even in the Montreal game, they had a big goal that everybody's cheering and everything, and the referee called it back. That was controversial. There's always, remember the magic goal? I'm trying to remember the circumstances. I shouldn't have brought it up if I don't know the details. But remember there was years ago, there was a goal that kind of got in the back because there was a hole in the netting, and the goal went in, and it was kind of this magic goal that I think counted. And then, of course, the Buffalo Bills, struggling, and the last couple of years, not that I follow the NFL that closely, but the Buffalo Bills have had this tremendous team and this tremendous quarterback, and what a season, what a playoff, next, and suddenly, lost, not in the Super Bowl. Oh my goodness, And then, of course, what other team other than the Bills have been to 4 Super Bowls in a row and lost each one? That is not a great legacy. It's a great, I always think of that. And again, I love sports for stories that transcend sports themselves. I love those stories and sports stats more than I love sports themselves, more than I love the game. I love because stats tell a story, and stories are great. And I always think of the Buffalo Bills. They battle it so hard. They make it to the Super Bowl. Here we are. Oh, well, somebody has to lose the Super Bowl. Well, guys, if we get it together, we could be back next year. And everybody who loses the Super Bowl says, we'll get him next year. We'll get him next year. And they do. They get back to the Super Bowl. Well, this year. Well, we lost. And then, we'll get him next year. It doesn't sound as strong anymore, but people are still hope against hope. We'll get him next year. And they do, and they lose. And then maybe we'll get him next year. I don't know. I doubt it. But they do. They make it. And so that's we all know 4 in a row. Wide left. It's just whatever the thing happened. So when getting back to Habs and Buffalo this year, I was kind of like, Buffalo. They've been, as good as the Bills have been getting. The Sabres kind of quietly been building a pretty good team there because nobody's heard of the Sabres for years. Like, who cares? Sabres, whatever. And then suddenly they're good, and they're really good, and they're making the playoffs, and they're beating teams badly, and there they are. And I was like, and they beat the Habs handily a couple of times, and I'm like, wow, is this either team could have won that series, and I would have been thrilled. I guess I'm a little more thrilled that we have a Canadian team still playing, and it's Montreal, because what a legendary franchise. But still, Buffalo, huh? What's up with Buffalo? Anyway, we enough about losers, right? It's let's keep the winning feeling here on Canadian Memorial Day weekend, with the Memorial Cup beginning today, with the as I said yesterday, the battle of the KRs, the Kelowna Rockets v the Kitchener Rangers, your hometown heroes, in Game 1 in Kelowna tonight at the Memorial Cup. 9 o'clock puck drop. Our coverage starts on 570 News Radio at 8:30. So that is, and again, we don't play it on Monday. And then Monday we play the WHL champs, the Everett Silver Tips. Fun fact, Silver Tip is a grizzly bear. I, of course, looked that up. I'm not that much of an expert on animal husbandry. I looked it up, and it's a silver tip is a grizzly bear. So then I looked that up, and they are kind of like a panda on steroids. It's they're not white-faced, but they have frosted hair on their shoulder blades and up their back and sort of around part of their face. So they're not black and white. They're silver tipped, and they actually call the grizzly bear the silver tips, and I guess they're very common to the Everett, Washington area, and a good name for a team. I always like that, there's something. It's a very colorful franchise name, Silver Tips, and I don't mean that in a pun. I mean that it's a good name. So we play Everett on Monday, and then Chicoutimi on Tuesday. So tonight, and Mike Farwell made this point, win or lose, you got the weekend to contemplate the second game on Monday, because we play tonight and then 2 days off, and then we play back to back. So that's it. It's tough if you lose that first game. God forbid, it's not going to happen. But if you lose that first game, you're certainly not out of contention by any stretch. But you got that weekend. You got 2 days to ponder that, to have that going through your skull, right? It's like, no, you don't want that. So best just to knock those poor Kelowna Rockets around and a victory, and that'll be a good weekend. Setting up for the game on Monday, and then the game on Tuesday. So Memorial Day weekend in Canada and the U.S. for two entirely different reasons. Mike Farwell out in Kelowna. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike. More in a moment here on 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Here, Mike Farwell tonight starting at 8:30 with the pregame coverage of Game 1 of the Memorial Cup, starring your Kitchener Rangers playing Kelowna Rockets. And puck drop at 9 o'clock. All of it on 570 News Radio tonight. I want to talk about what we're going to be featuring on this Friday morning program. But before that, did you in fact watch Colbert's last show last night? I watched the clips, as I said I would yesterday. 11:30. Honestly, I don't think these sad eyes have seen 11:30 p.m. for a couple of years at least. Not unless I'm up to go to whatever. No, just the hours I keep, just generally, and have always kept. I usually don't be up that late, and there's no point in PVRing it for me. I thought, I want to catch the highlights, so I did that today. And what I really thought was cool about his goodbye was that he made it joyful. Even if he said it's our last show and the audience boo, booing CBS, so to speak, he would no, we've been lucky to be here for 11 years, kind of that thing. And so he kept it, didn't do any Trump jokes. I thought that was an interesting choice also. None at all. None at all. Very little. He did some news kind of things, but he didn't really do politics, which was a decision they made, and I thought a good one. The monologue had some celebrity, sort of audience interruptions, like, "Oh, look who's in the audience yelling at me." That was, it was funny enough. Although if you're going to ask me who would be in the audience in a bit with Stephen Colbert, I never would have said, well, Bryan Cranston, Paul Rudd, and Tim Meadows. I never would have guessed those three, but they were very funny, very good. And I guess the other, sort of to skip to the end, if you will, the big production number with Paul McCartney, which I guess kind of made sense. Paul McCartney was in New York. He was on SNL this past Saturday and performed last night as they had this musical number with Elvis Costello and others, and they kept bringing people in, and then it was Paul McCartney, and they did Hello Goodbye, the Beatles classic, which was so apt for that. And then at the very end, you see Colbert and McCartney. And McCartney presented Colbert with a beautiful framed, mounted, photograph of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan stage in 1964. So very cool to have that picture signed, to Stephen. And what a memory you'd have for ever of getting that. What a memento, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. That you would hang prominently, at least I would, in my home, and have that. And then McCartney actually closed it's down in the basement next to the big fuse box, which I'm sure still exists in that old building. And Paul McCartney pulls the lever and literally turns the lights out at the Ed Sullivan Theater, because who knows what's going to happen to that theater right now, and who's late night or the late show is not coming back. People are saying that in 5 years there will be no late night television, which is interesting, and not necessarily because of politics, but because of the way we watch or don't watch TV these days, So maybe this is the end of or the beginning of the end of an era of late night shows, late night television. Could be. But that Ed Sullivan Theater, who knows what that might become. The interesting thing, too, that a lot of people aren't talking about, but CBS is also shuttering all of their radio as of the next little while. No CBS radio, which is also, I guess, to put it mildly, a sign of the times, I guess. So that's a big deal. That's not going to affect you and I in our day to day, I know, but I just, from a media standpoint, I was just thought that was kind of a big deal. But anyway, on the show today, lots to talk about. We're going to talk about the Basadi Sewing Center. Have you heard about this place? It's amazing stuff that they do. That is coming up at 10:30 this morning. We're also going to talk to David Alton, who just threw his hat in the ring for the fall election for mayor of Kitchener. So we're going to speak to that latest candidate. And coming up next on the show, I'm very excited. We're going to be talking to the famous Dino Roumel, who is now a Guelph Sports Hall of Famer. Okay, and we're going to talk about the Guelph Royals in baseball and his career over these many years in baseball, and a well-deserved induction into the Hall of Fame. He's going to be our guest next. This is 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Welcome back to the Mike Farwell Show. Mike, as we know, in Kelowna, as you just heard, because we're going to be talking about it a lot throughout the show and just throughout the day here on 570 News Radio. Kitchener Rangers in the Memorial Cup, and they kick off that round robin tonight against the Kelowna Rockets. It's game one of the Memorial Cup, and it's our Kitchener Rangers. So 8:30, again, a reminder for the pregame. here on 570 News Radio, and 9 o'clock the puck drop for Game 1. Go Rangers. Now, baseball. We're going to switch from hockey to baseball. In such a good news way, we have a baseball legend with the Guelph Royals who's going to be inducted, or I guess now is inducted into the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame, class of 2026. Dare I say the legendary, and because it's true, Baseball Hall of Famer Dino Roumel, who joins us now. Good morning, Dino.
Good morning, Larry. Thank you very much. It's great being on with you.
Well, how does that sound, Hall of Famer? Huh? How does that feel?
Well, I always joke around and say they were running out of people to put in, obviously, but it's such an honor. You know, I hosted a sports phone-in show for 18 years out of Kitchener and Guelph on Rogers, and we focused on local sports and professional sports, but my passion has always been the local part of it, and to be able to coach. This is my 40th year, and represent my city, and be involved in the rivalries we have with Kitchener in the area. It just means a lot to me, and to be recognized for what we've done. It speaks volumes, and I'm very appreciative to everybody who's been along the ride with me.
I believe that was Sports Zone. Many people would remember for all those years.
That's right, Sports Zone. In fact, that's where Mike Farwell got his start. Mike and I have been friends for years, and he's gone on to do great things. And I'm a big fan of his, and I know he's going to have a great time out west.
Sure is, and he does such a great job, not only here on the show, of course, but with the Rangers hockey. Now, there's so many things you just said there that I wanted to talk to you about, so I don't know where to start, but I'm going to start as you, as a kid, as a baseball fan, and I just learned this part, that you were at the very first ever Blue Jays game at Exhibition Stadium?
Yes, my dad took me out there. It was, I remember it being snowy, and I was a huge baseball fan growing up. From the time I was 5 or 6, I'd watch, the Big Red Machine and the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Dodgers back then. I just loved baseball, and I was so excited about coming into Toronto, and I went to 27 consecutive home openers and sit out in the bleachers. And back then, now I feel so old, but back then it was like $2 and $4 to sit in the grandstand in the general admission. It was just so much fun going to that old ballpark. It was a terrible place to watch baseball, but being at that first game, I look back on it and think about how fortunate I was to be able to experience that with my dad, and I had a blast. Baseball's been really good to me.
Well, I actually have been to games at Exhibition Stadium. My baseball story, real quick, is my son and I were at Game 6 of the World Series when Joe Carter hit the home run. So, right. Father and son stories in baseball, they mean a lot.
They really do. They really do.
Somebody called when I was on for Mike last fall. We were talking Jays and the Jays run, of course. Somebody called and said when he was a kid, they used to live near Exhibition Stadium, and the kids would ride their bikes there on game day because the police would bust the scalpers, and they would hand the tickets to the kids in the neighborhood. And isn't that a great story?
Well, in 1985, when the Blue Jays won the American League East for the first time, I remember going out to because we used to go to I used to go to 40 games a year. So I remember lining up to go into the playoff game, and I knew some of the scalpers because I was always a huge, I was a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. All those guys were regular guys. And I remember walking by, and nobody really wanted to pay a lot of money to sit in the grandstand, the general admission, because, it was just, there were seats that were so far away from home plate. And I remember a guy selling 2 tickets or giving away 2 tickets to this girl for a Blue Jay towel so he could go home and cry about how many tickets he has in his hand. So it was great. I mean, baseball, it was starting to grow back then. And now, and again, after what we saw last year, baseball in the whole region and baseball across the country has just caught fire again. So it's really exciting for people like me that that have such a passion for it, to see people that normally didn't watch baseball now become really big baseball fans because of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Dino Roumel is our guest, Guelph Sports Hall of Famer and Guelph Royals manager and legend. So Dino, you were a pitcher as a player. As a kid, you got into baseball and you were a pitcher. There's probably a lot of stories there, but I want to skip ahead to what gave you the coaching bug? How did you go from player to coach?
Well, I had a coach in the junior when I was playing junior. I was 20 years old, and I was at that point. I just wasn't that good. I had some shoulder problems, and I loved the game. I had a passion for the game, but my coach and I, Brad DiCarlo, who should be in the Hall of Fame here because he's Mr. Baseball. He works at every level in baseball in Guelph here. Brad and I would walk around after practice while I was a player and just talk baseball, talk about pro baseball, talk about strategic things in the game and how passionate I was. And he said to me, "Do you ever think about coaching?" And I was at 20 years old. And he said, "We're expecting another child, and I think I'm going to step away from it for a little bit, and we're looking for a coach." So I took the job the following year, and I was coaching some of the players I was playing with, which was a real challenge. But we had a really good group coming up from the younger age. And I remember we lost our first 3 games, and a bunch of the veterans said, "Hey, we're going to move up to the Royals because this is not what we want to do this summer." And we ended up winning 11 games in a row, and we went to the finals, and we won our first championship in 38 years. It was quite a ride.
Wow.
But but again, it came down to the guys that we had gotten in the room and changed the whole culture of what we were building here. And then from then on, I stayed in junior for a couple more years and then moved up to the Guelph Royals, and we got on a great run. So that's really where it started. And I look back on it, and I've coached some great players, some guys that are in the major leagues right now, and I've had a really, really good run.
Talk about the influence of your brother, because I think this is a great part of the story of the great competitiveness you had, but as brothers.
Yeah, I have a brother who's a year and a half younger than me, but he's definitely my hero. I'm getting emotional now talking about it. He's probably one of the greatest people you'll ever meet. He's had multiple sclerosis for 30 years now, and he has never complained a day in his life. Always smiling, always laughing. He's a practical joker, and he's just a happy guy and loving guy. He has got a beautiful family. So we always had these huge rivalries. We were never on the same team. And I tell guys this story all the time. When we were Little League, you were allowed to hit 2 batters, and then okay, you're losing your control. We don't want to drag this on. So you'd have to come out if you hit 2 batters. Well, I made sure I took advantage of those 2 and hit my brother twice. Because I was going to get my money's worth. But we had a great rivalry. We pond hockey, everything we did, golf. It was in a good way. Like we are so close. We speak almost every day, or we call each other almost every day. And he gave me that kind of drive because I hated losing to him. It kept pushing me. And now I look at him and see what he's going through and how he handles things. It is just so inspiring. He's inspired so many people. I've taken him to NFL games, and there's head coaches that I know in the National Football League that, the first thing they, instead of coming over and say hi to me, they ran right over to Mel and would see how he's doing and they would tell me that they've never seen anybody like him as far as how he's handled his adversity. But anyway, that's where it developed. And I am a competitor. I hated losing at Crazy Eights to my kids when they were 3 and 4. So it's translated in the field, and a lot of umpires will tell you that they've seen it firsthand.
Well, and you had a lot of victories and championships, and not only Guelph Royals, but you've worn a lot of uniforms in this league, only, by the way, to arrive back in Guelph at the end of, I guess at the end of this, because you are hanging it up. But Tell me about that. What is it? I mean, Toronto, Brantford. What am I missing? Oshawa, I think?
When I left here, when I left Guelph to coach with the Ontario Blue Jays, I ran into Jack Domenico, who was a wonderful man and did such a great job for this league with Toronto. And he brought me in 2007, and we, they scuffled around a little bit. They hadn't won in I think maybe 10 years or 9 years. And he was looking to make a move as a coaching change. And so we ran into each other, and he said, would you be interested in coaching? And so I thought, okay, maybe both my daughters were of the age where, I could have a little bit of time. And so I went there and I took the job, and we won our first year. We broke a league record for wins, and we won a championship. Larry, I'll tell you, I'll be quick with this one, but it was so funny. There were about 7,000 people at the final game. It was Game 7 against Brantford the year we won. And I remember we were celebrating and we had some champagne, and, we were doing a couple of interviews after, and I saw this little boy with his dad, and I walked over and I flipped the ball to the kid, and I said, thanks for coming out. And he said, thank you, Coach. And I never thought I'd be able to tell my son that we were at a game where the Toronto Maple Leafs won a championship. And so every time the Leaf hockey team loses, I tell all my friends, I'm still the last Maple Leaf head coach to win a championship in Toronto. So I'm milking that for as much as I can. So I did that.
Absolutely.
I moved on to Oshawa, and then I was I was invited out to help out with Brantford, and we won the last of 6 consecutive championships that they won there. I was there in 2013. So I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of great players and had an opportunity to win some championships. And these players have definitely made me look a lot better than I really am.
Well, I doubt that, but I was going to ask you, when you see a player succeed, it's your success too as a coach. You got to feel that, right?
You know what? It really is something that's part of the thing that makes me feel the best. I look at guys that have gone on to college, and play college baseball after, I've had a chance to work to coach them. Bo and Josh Naylor were in the big leagues right now. Jordan Romano, it's a great story. Romano was a catcher for me when he was 15 and 16, and he couldn't. He was good. He wasn't a great hitter, but he had a strong arm. So I asked him one day, I said, have you ever thought about being a pitcher? And he had never pitched before. So we were on the road for 30 days in the States, and we worked in the bullpen, and he came out, he pitched, and he loved it. And he said, I think I'd like to pitch. So for the next few years, we worked together as an organization to bring him along. And he ended up being the closer for the Toronto Blue Jays and still is in the major leagues. But I remember him sending me a message saying, I'm getting called up to Baltimore, and I said, congratulations. Now I feel comfortable in telling you were a terrible catcher. So that was kind of the thing we rode with for a while. It's and that's it exactly. To see the successes, but not only that, Larry, the friendships you develop in the run we had in the early '90s. We're in 2026 now, and I speak to a lot of those guys regularly, on a weekly basis. So the relationships is going to be the thing that I'm going to miss the most about being away from the game.
And speaking of that, I was unclear the way it was worded. You're hanging it up, but you're around this season. This coming season will be your last. Is that right? Yeah,
this is okay. My final year with coaching, and this is my 40th year. So this has been a lot of summers that I've given up to the game, and it's a game that I love. But I also love my daughters. Talia and Nikki have grown up so quick, and they've been so patient. They come to the game sometimes, but there's things that I want to do with them and travel with them in the summertime and be able to spend time with them, and my whole family, Tammy, my wife, they've been so good about it and supportive. I'd like to spend some time with them too. So I think this is a great time for me to jump, and I'm excited about our team this year. We have a very, very talented team, and unfortunately, it's started off a bit of like a crazy train. It's been off the rails in the first two games, but we're going to be really good. And we talk about the Kitchener Rangers. Well, the Kitchener Panthers are in first place right now, so it's a great time for local sports, especially in Kitchener.
Right. Well, I thought this ahead of time, but even after talking to you now, I can't think of a more deserving person for the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame than you, Dino Roumel. And thanks for all the great times, the great baseball, and all the best to you in the future, whatever you do, sir. Thank you.
Larry, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Our pleasure. Dino Roumel is a field manager for the Guelph Royals, and just got inducted into the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame class of 2026. And of course, as he said, one more season of baseball after 40 and a bit years of coaching. What a terrific story. This is 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk, in for Mike Farwell. Back in a moment.
To see the successes, but not only that, Larry, the friendships you develop in the run we had in the early 90s. We're in 2026 now, and I speak to a lot of those guys regularly, on a weekly basis. So the relationships is going to be the thing that I'm going to miss the most about being away from the game.
But not till this season is over. Dino Roumel there, our guest. I'm Larry Fedoruk, sitting in for Mike Farwell. And we just spoke to Dino. Dino is the manager for the Guelph Royals, and is going to do one more year of coaching before he retires as a baseball coach. And when you've been doing it as long as Dino has and so well, after 40 years, I get completely what he's saying. But I should have asked him probably, but he's not retired yet. But I mean, so next summer we could ask him, are you feeling the pull to go back and make a comeback as a coach? It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a baseball coach, I guess, or whatever you do. If you, to earn a living after a number of years, you're going to miss it, So especially when you got a great job like baseball manager and you love baseball and have all your life. And again, he's been very successful at it, a lot of championships with a lot of different teams. And as I said, he's coached in the league for Guelph. And I'm not going to get the order right here, but I think it was Toronto Maple Leafs, Brantford, Oshawa, back to Guelph. I believe those are the teams, but not the order. But so now he's back in Guelph. Anyway, the point being that he's in the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame, and what a deserving honor that is for a local baseball legend, Dino Roumel. And what a terrific guy, too. So wish him all the best. And I did drop that story in there because whoever, if you're listening, it was on this show, on the Mike Farwell show last fall-ish, when we were talking Blue Jays, that somebody called this show and said, repeating the story quickly, that they lived in the exhibition stadium area when he was a kid, and he rode his bike to this stadium on game day because police would bust the scalpers and hand tickets out to kids. So, it's, with all the talk of expensive ticket prices and overpriced tickets to sporting events, and because when you told me that story, I love that story, and I've repeated it many times to many people because it's such a cool story. But of all the talk about inflated prices for Taylor Swift or the Blue Jays or whatever it is, that you can't get tickets, and then aftermarket tickets are hundreds or thousands of dollars, I always think of that story and I go, if it were so simple that we could just send the police in, take the tickets and hand them out to kids on bikes, wouldn't that just be great if that's the way the system worked today? But unfortunately, it's gone so far beyond that. But nevertheless, talk much. Congratulations again to Dino Roumel for being inducted into the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame. Like I said, can't think of a more deserving person. Coming up next on the program, I'm going to speak to David Alton. They are running for mayor of Kitchener, one of the first people to put their name in the hat? No, they throw their hat in the ring. They put their name in the. How does that work? Anyway, they are going to be a candidate for the mayoral race during the big municipal elections in October. So that is coming up next here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host Larry Fedoruk.
Welcome back. Sitting in for Mike under the best of circumstances. The reason I'm here is because Mike is at the Memorial Cup. Doesn't that sound great? As you just heard, and I will repeat this throughout the day, it's game day, and the action starts at 8:30 tonight on 570 News Radio with the pregame puck drop at 9 with Mike Farwell and Josh Piercy. So very exciting day for Kitchener. Coming up on the program at 10:30 this morning, in about half an hour, we're going to be talking to the Basadi Sewing Center. And I don't know if you've heard about this place. It's an amazing story. It's something they call a social enterprise, which is an interesting phrase that I'm going to ask them about. But even though a place of business, place where you work, has always a social aspect, when you build something as a social enterprise, it is a much different kind of place of work and business. So we're going to be talking to them. And don't forget, at 11 o'clock this morning, it's our Friday 4 panel. And our guests today will be Janice Jim and David Marskell and Tom Galloway, all joining us on the Friday 4 panel to talk about some of the big stories of the week in a panel discussion. One of the early candidates for the fall election, October 26th later this year, all the municipal elections, and in the run for Kitchener mayor, we have a name now in the proverbial hat. It's a local housing advocate and is now in the race. David Alton joining us. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Larry.
What prompted you to decide that you want to run for mayor?
Well, I've been involved locally in a lot of different hats, both kind of doing some grassroots organizing work as well as nonprofit connecting work, and particularly in the field of housing and homelessness. And we consistently keep running up against the same barrier, which is political will. Time and time again, elected officials keep voting against building housing and against people's rights, which is most exemplified in the court case that's just been going on. And so I was like, it's time for someone who's going to come in there and actually try and solve this crisis that is impacting so many people in our community.
I was looking at some of the categories, if you will, of your platform, which I want to get to, but the overall theme, I guess, is a joyful city.
Yes.
Now, that sounds great, but what particularly, I mean, that's not just a slogan. You're pretty serious about a joyful city. What does that mean?
Yeah, and so this is, for folks who don't know me, I grew up in the Mennonite tradition, and so faith and spirituality have been really important to me. And so the concept of joy for me is not just about a city that everyone's happy in. It's about the experience of being valued. And so a joyful city is a city where everyone feels valued by their government. It's where they feel like they belong. It's where they feel like they can make meaning. Doesn't mean things are always going to be hunky-dory, but it means that they know that their government and their community has their back. And so that's why I think it really resonates with a lot of people right now who are feeling really left out by the way politics have been currently running. I mean, the city of Kitchener had the region's lowest voter turnout last municipal election. So that's a sign that people are feeling like this city isn't speaking for them. And a joyful city is about making sure that they know that their rights are going to be upheld, that they are going to be treated with dignity, and that there are going to be opportunities for them to thrive. Because I think that's what we all want, is opportunities to feel like we can express ourselves, whether that's through creativity or through the amazing sports such as the Rangers right now. Like, we should be creating more and more opportunities for people to thrive.
It's interesting because I was reminded, and maybe not correctly so, but I was reminded of Kamala Harris joining the presidential race a year and a half ago or so, and everybody said she was bringing joy back to politics, and for whatever it meant for them. But I was reminded of it when I saw A Joyful City, is bringing joy to not just the city, but to the whole process of it all the time. If that's a fair comparison, I don't know.
I mean, I think it is a fair comparison in that I think that's something people really crave. I think the difference between myself and the Democratic Party, one is just scale. They have billions or millions of dollars of people interested in their campaign, where my main supporters are, homeless people and tenants and, people who are really, struggling paycheck to paycheck. And I think also the thing that they missed out is their joy was not thinking about people's basic dignity. And, when we see some of the decisions that both the federal government in the States and in Canada have made, there's a consistent pattern of not respecting people's rights, not respecting people's dignity. And so how can you have joy if, you have people in your community who are being actively subjugated by government?
I was looking at some of the pillars of this Joyful City campaign, and I think you touched on it already, but one of them being the right to belong, which is really a big statement. It's a bigger statement if you think about it, the right to belong. It seems like it should just be a basic right, but it's something I guess you have to fight for, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't feel like they belong. I think there's a lot of people who feel very lonely, very disenfranchised, but also like practically up until, last night when the court had the decision, the region of Waterloo's official stance was that some people in our community don't even have the right to life, right? That they don't have the right to exist in space. So there's a very material side to the right to belong, that there should be ample public spaces that all people can access. But then I think there's also just the very emotional and communal aspect of it, where so many people are feeling left behind, so many people are feeling isolated, and that government has a role that can help in terms of investing in public spaces, investing in public infrastructure that brings people together and makes them feel like their community and their interests matter.
Yeah, to me, it's always not only the government has a role, but there are certain things I think we expect of our government. And some of the things you mentioned are things that I think are incumbent upon them to be involved in and helping us. Right to mobility, right to housing. I know you're obviously an advocate for that. What does the right to collective action mean exactly? If you could explain that.
Yeah, and I think as I was brainstorming, how do we talk about all the gaps and needs and aspirations of people? Something that kept coming up is just the behavior of the province and the way that the province has been. I mean, most recently, just getting rid of our elected regional chair, and targeting our school boards for many years, and just being like that. We are operating in a province where people in power do not respect our democratic rights locally. They do not respect our collective voice locally, and they are undermining, the ability of people at the grassroots level to make a difference in their community. And so that's what I really wanted to center, is that I'm watching what's going on in schools, I'm watching what's going on, with labor unions, and I'm watching what's going on with our local ability to vote for the people who make decisions on our behalf. And I'm like, we need to actually really hone in on that. We as a collective have rights, the rights to, form labor unions, the rights to improve our education, and the right to vote and have our elected officials represent us.
I think, what's the word? Democracy?
Yeah.
That's the
dream.
What's that?
That's the dream that I think many Canadians hold on to. That's what we proudly portray when we travel around the world. It's why, so many people around the world have come to Kitchener-Waterloo seeking democracy. And if we are allowing our democratic rights to be eroded, that's a big warning sign. And I want to help platform the people who are going to be standing up for our rights.
Feel free to pass on this question, but you identify as non-binary. How important is that to you in a campaign, or is it at all?
I think what's important, I know a lot of people when they encounter non-binary people get really concerned about the pronouns. I want people to know pronouns are not my pain point. They're not my trauma. They are for some people. But why I wanted to center the non-binariness is because how can people trust me to represent them and stand up for them if I'm selling myself out? Like, if I'm not even going to stand up for myself, why would anyone believe I'll stand up for them? And so, I am a non-binary person, and I want people to know that I'm going to try and do this work as authentically and honestly and humanly as possible. And that means showing up for you as my authentic self. And I think there's another level, which is just the political dimension. I don't know if people have been following what's been going on locally for the past couple of years. There have been people in our community who've been very vocal against queer people. I was involved in organizing a queer youth event to try and protect a drag story time at the Kitchener Public Library. Like, there's a practical level that queer people in this community belong, and we deserve to be treated with dignity. But most importantly, I just want people to know that I'm not selling myself out, and I'm not going to sell you out.
And you declared fairly early in this run up to October 26th. Was that a strategic decision, or it was just time to declare?
Yeah, I think because my focus is so much on trying to spark conversations about our different rights that are under threat, and so much of my interest is in platforming other local leaders and other grassroots community members, I wanted enough time to host as many town halls as possible on different rights. So I've actually, we just announced it this morning, but my competitor, Wajma Frog, and I, we are actually collaborating on a primary on human rights, and we are going to be hosting a series of town halls on various rights throughout summer or throughout the whole campaign, so people have a chance to really make clear what rights are important to them, what are the calls to action, and then they can, they know that between Wajma and I, they are going to have someone who is a champion of human rights in office.
How do you face the fact that you're a new candidate? You're certainly not new to issues and political issues and things like that, but maybe newer to politics. And we know that sometimes politics, even municipal, can be a powerful machine. How do you set up and battle against that over the coming weeks and months?
Well, I want people to know that, I am quite experienced in this. I spend my day job is literally talking to nonprofit leaders and counselors on your human rights. I was an affidavit in the court case for the residents of 100 Victoria, and would spend many hours talking to different counselors about options that wouldn't infringe on people's rights. Like, that's what I do. I spend my time talking and building bridges across power. And I think, I don't know about you, but I have spent my entire life looking and hearing politicians all say the same kind of thing, have the same kind of vision that is all about small, powerless, undermined government. I mean, literally, Barry Verbandervik has been an elected official since I was 2 years old. And I just think it's time that we had a different voice in our community. We think it's time government stopped saying, I'm not responsible for this. It's not my problem. Stop pointing the finger. I want to be there to let people know that government is responsible, and there are people in our community who will take responsibility to keep you safe, to keep you and to give you the opportunities that you need to thrive. So that's why I want to run, and I think I'm very qualified to do it. But I don't know, when we have a community where only Barry only got 20,000 votes from the community, what kind of power mandate is that actually? I think there's so many more people in our community who are feeling left out, and I'm hoping that they'll take a look at my campaign, check out my website, davidalton.org, and express their desires for a more joyful city.
I'm looking at davidalton.org right now. It is really, by the way, set up very nicely and very easy to navigate, which is important. So if people want information on your run here and on you, davidalton.org is good spot. And a great conversation. I appreciate it today. Thank you. All the best, David.
Thank you so much. I made the website all myself. Most people are using AI this campaign, but I'm trying my best to figure it out myself. Thank you for the conversation.
All right, you too. That's interesting. Yeah, because it's nicely done, really. I mean, of billions and billions of web pages that you come upon, I really find some are just, what is this? Where is, and I'm online a lot, so it was nice to go to this very clean, concise, easy to read and navigate website. DavidAlton.org, one of the early candidates for mayor of Kitchener for that October 26th election. I'm Larry Fedoruk, in for Mike Farwell. Back in a moment here on 570 News Radio.
That's what I really wanted to center, is that, like, I'm watching what's going on in schools, I'm watching what's going on with labor unions, and I'm watching what's going on with our local ability to vote for the people who make decisions on our behalf. And I'm like, we need to actually really hone in on that. We as a collective have the rights to form labor unions, the rights to improve our education, and the right to vote and have our elected officials represent us.
I'm Larry Fedoruk, in for Mike Farwell, and that was our guest moments ago. Candidate for mayor of Kitchener in the October 26th election, David Alton there, davidalton.org, for all the pillars of his campaign and the overall theme of Joyful City. The platform is Joyful City, and an early candidate there that we thought we'd get a chance to get to know and talk to a bit. And it's tough. David is currently, as he says, his day job and what he's been doing is advocating for homeless and local housing and the like. So for that, and I was trying to be delicate with the question of, when you're somebody from that particular area of community, local housing and homelessness and all that kind of stuff. In other words, politics and politicians seems to come from politics. There's somehow you work your way into kind of the organization, the clique, if you will, and rise through the ranks. Sometimes, not always, but often there is already a machinery in play where somebody comes along and goes, I want to be that. I want to be that person in local politics, and in this case, mayor, and it's kind of tougher for those types of candidates to do well, and sometimes, in my opinion, we need more of those kinds of candidates, right? We don't mean it. On respect to current people in current positions who work hard and have good goals and things they want to accomplish. I see that. This is not a damning statement against the current state of affairs of politics, but just generally saying it's hard to bring candidates in from different walks of life and areas and say, okay, run the show, go. It can be difficult for them. So, and as I said, sometimes we need more of those. And as David alluded to, what we need people to vote. This is a tired old thing of mine, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because, oh my gosh, but vote. Oh my goodness. I always say this, the level of politics, if you look at federal, provincial, and municipal, the level of politics that has the most direct effect on you from when you wake up to when you go to sleep is municipal. On your day-to-day life, it's municipal politics has the most effect on you. And what historically gets the lowest voter turnout ever? It's municipal politics. What is going on? Are we just in election burnout by the time the municipal elections roll along? I don't know what it is. And low voter turnout, you get what you deserve. You have to vote. People have to get out of this mindset of, well, I'm one person, one vote. What does it matter? My vote doesn't count. And it's just not true. It's just not true. If democracy is the people having a say in their lives, and that's a pretty loose definition, but if that is democracy, then have your say. That's part of what your responsibility is, to carry on democracy. Why is democracy under attack? Because people aren't voting. And they aren't voting for democratic systems. in the last provincial election. I made the joke yesterday that somebody posted something that said that Doug Ford's, this was weeks ago, so I don't know the current numbers, but the line was Doug Ford's popularity is at its lowest at 27%. And I always said, well, that's still more than who voted for him. And because the voter turnout was so low, and then you fraction that by the people who voted for a majority government in this case in Ontario, and you go, wow, so it's this many people are now getting it said for 16 plus million people in Ontario because people just didn't turn out to vote. Wow, that's so in municipal politics, again, very, very important. Back in a moment with more. This is 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Welcome back to the Mike Farwell Show. As you've been hearing, Mike will be back tonight at 8:30 for the pregame of Game 1 of the Memorial Cup, and our Kitchener Rangers taking on Kelowna. I'm calling it Memorial Day weekend in Canada. Memorial Day is in the United States. It's Monday. Memorial Day for Canada will be the 31st of May when the final game of the Memorial Cup is being played. So that's my little designation of the day. Coming up at 11 o'clock this morning, our Friday 4 panel. We'll have some guests, as always. There'll be 4 of us, including me, and we'll talk about some of the big stories of the week. And then, of course, at noon hour is the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, where we throw the phones totally open to you. And we do that, of course, every day on this program. But Fridays are always a little more, exciting, vocal somehow. So the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour at noon. Been looking forward to this segment because I want to find out more about Basadi Sewing, this social enterprise that has been going strong as a social enterprise for at least a couple of years, but has got a little bit of a history even a little further back than that. From Basadi, we have the manager of Basadi, who is Mujata Yusuf Jao. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm happy to be here to talk about Basadi today.
Well, thank you for joining us. And we also have Alushin Olienka, who is executive director. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you very much.
And I don't know who wants to take this first question, but talk about, because I understand Basadi started basically as something social back around COVID time. Is that correct?
Yes, a little around COVID, yes.
And what was that? What was behind that? Just to try and get together during COVID and tough times to keep people together?
Right. So Basadi is a baby of an organization called Adventure for Change. And at that time, women were feeling isolated and they wanted something to do. So they came to my predecessor. So I've only been in the organization for 4 years and said, what can we do? How can we just be together? And he asked for suggestions, and a sewing program has started. It was a recreation sewing program. They got 4 sewing machines donated to them, and that started. So very slowly, volunteers were teaching these women the basics of sewing. By the time I joined, the moms came to me and said, can we do something that can help us as moms earn an income? By the way, these are moms in Sunnydale area, Albert Street and High Street of North Waterloo, who typically live in government-assisted housing, have between 6 and 10 children. And so they usually are just at home. And so they wanted something to keep them busy. They could learn a skill, professionalize that skill, and begin to make money from that skill. That led to a research that United Way funded. I'm excited to say that about that research. And that gave birth to the response of sewing becoming a social enterprise. And that gave birth to Basadi. And my joy is that in this almost 2.5 to 3 years of the research, the aftermath of the research, we got funding from the Ontario Trillium Foundation to actually set up the social enterprise. And we have been wowed. We've had over 80 women go through our training programs, and many of them can now sew. Of these 80, I would say about 10 to 12 can sew at professional level. And that has given birth to them making everything you can imagine, from bags to custom designs. They do some alterations and mending. They also do some upcycling, a lot of upcycling, because most of those bags, about 90% of them, are from previously used fabric or outfits and so on and so forth. So that's where we are. That's how Basadi started.
This is interesting because I was under the impression that it was women who knew how to sew got together as a social group, but you actually were teaching people the skills of sewing, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And this idea of social enterprise, I love that idea. So that means, because every enterprise has a social aspect, but this is socials up front here. This is important for the social aspect and also to have an income.
Absolutely. And I'll just like to add to that to say part of the design from the beginning, before we started, after the research was done, was to say for every income that comes, a percentage goes back to fund Adventure for Change program in North Waterloo for children, youths, and their families, newcomers who are looking for how to integrate and contribute to Waterloo region. And the other percentage, 40% of it, goes to the actual moms who get the work done. And that's why it's a social enterprise. That's been the focus from the beginning.
The fact that I learned also was that Basadi is Sesotho language, and it means
women. So Basadi Sewing is women sewing.
Women sewing, and you touched on it, but maybe Lucia, you can get into this as well of what exactly you do. You mentioned sort of alterations and repairs, but what kind of sewing is being done?
Yeah, Muchi, that over to you. This is you.
Yes. So I would like to add that most of the moms that are part of this program already know how to sew a little bit, but because we want to let them get to a level where they can earn and do work almost like what a professional would do, so they've had to go through our classes and our training. So what we do is we do alterations, mending. We have a place in St. Jacob's Market where you can just drop by for a quick fix, or you come to our place here at Phillip Street. We also teach. So we have sewing classes for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. And that has been a good one. So we have we have a website where you can sign up for our sewing classes for 10 people. But out of the 10, we leave 4 to 3 spots for the community members that are interested. So that's us giving back to the community, and that's how we're able to train some of the moms that have also become trainers as well. So I started teaching level 1 sewing classes, but I had some moms that were interested, and they've gone through these classes multiple times with me. I'm proud to say that one of them boldly teaches one of those classes right now, and I've seen where, because sometimes I would try to be nearby to see maybe she needs help, but I've seen where she has honed the class as her own, like she teaches more than I would have in her own way. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I feel what really brings everybody together is the sewing. And that's a skill she has and we have here. So that's what the social enterprise has done. This woman would not be bold enough to say they want to come out and teach, but we've given them the platform to earn as well. So we've had opportunity where the moms have been featured in amazing way like this in newspapers, and their family members back home have seen it, and the proudness and from their family and from their children. It's what we've created, and we are grateful. We're still open to do more. We have a lot of moms that are still ready.
When I saw this, I thought of sewing as almost a lost art. We know that mending and alterations and things like that, minor sewing things are done. But I remember a time my mom bought patterns and bought material and sewed outfits, and that it really is something that I don't know if enough people do. I think it would be important to learn. I guess that's partly what you do, right?
Yeah. And I think from the places that we come from, that's very important. Response is not to throw away. First response is, how do we fix it? So for us, I think that's why the moms really want to, and I remember that those were the things they said to us at the point of the research was, I just want to be able to make my own cushion covers and my own curtains. And when my kids' dresses get torn, I want to be able to fix that myself rather than buying all the time. And in these days of sustainability being a topic and the environment being a conversation, that's a passion for us, is as much as you have, as many fabrics, old clothes, please don't throw them away. There's a lady on the team, Suher. don't let her see your old fabric because she's going to turn it into something. She can help you with refixing your posh, what's it called now? The chairs outside. What do we call those? Behind our houses where we have those lovely seats that people sit down at the back of the house. Many of those things are old. Don't throw away the frame. We need those frames. We can help you recover your seats outside. It's some of the things that someone like Suhair does. And when Suhair came, she was just a basic sewer. Today, she's making bags. She's making aprons for adults and children's hats. It's amazing to see the growth that these women have experienced in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah. Were you talking patios, by the way, or is it?
Yes, that was the word I was missing, patios. Thank you.
Because for some reason I couldn't find the word either. I was like, but
yeah, it was patios.
When you teach sewing, also you can teach sewing not so people can work at Basadi necessarily, but just to know on their own. Is that correct? It's so they can have it themselves as a skill.
And I think that's what they said to us. They said we want to be able to make things for ourselves. 1, 2, if you have jobs for us, and 3, if there are other places that needs people that can sew, then we can get a job. I think the philosophy of Adventure for Change has eaten into the moms that they are saying we can't just sit. We want to contribute to our community, to the city, to the region, empower us to do this. And this sewing program or this sewing social enterprise has become the vehicle for us to get this done with these amazing moms.
Well, or should I say so, how can people find you again? Tell people how they can get a hold of you.
So we are at the farmers market, a peddler's village. Inside the peddler's village, we have a sewing machine right there. So if you want a quick fix where you can go buy things and pick up later, we do that. We also take old denims. So please do not throw your clothing. We take donations of outfits or fabrics or sewing machines. So that's one of the things we take. So people reach out to us, give us sewing machines, and we give it to the community or someone that needs it and can afford to buy. So then the old denim, like she mentioned earlier, we have someone that's an expert in upcycling. So we change that to tote bags, to school bags, to outfits that we can resell at cheaper rates and can still be reused. Also, we have a website, basadisewing.ca, where you can register for your sewing classes. In case you just want to learn how to do basic hemming and your own personal mending, it's a good opportunity to join our classes. It runs all through the year. We've run about, I would say, like 7 classes already this year, and we still get sign up. So yes, and
right.
So I was going to mention the 4, I would say 4 locations that are very critical. Basadisewing.ca, BASADI sewing, one word, .ca, the location at St. Jacob's Market at the Peddlers Village. Our office at 465 Phillips Street, Suite 13. That's also a place you can come to drop your things if you can't get to St. Jacob's. And then, can you share the Basadi phone number if you don't mind, Mujida?
Please, yeah, go ahead.
Basadi phone number. Okay, 226-507-3634. 226-507-3634.
All right. I saw the phrase stitching together a new beginning, and I thought that was such a nice way to put it. And enjoyed the conversation. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To Mujita and Aleutian. Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You as well.
Bye.
So nice to hear about Basadi Sewing. Again, BASADI, just kind of the way it sounds, I guess. Basadi Sewing.ca, one word. And you can find out more about that. There's Majida Yusuf Ajao and Aleutian Olienka, our guests here on 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell with more in a moment.
The philosophy of Adventure for Change has eaten into the moms that they are saying we can't just sit. We want to contribute to our community, to the city, to the region, empower us to do this. And this sewing program or this sewing social enterprise has become the vehicle for us to get this done with these amazing moms.
Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Our guest a moment ago, Aleutian Aleutian Olienka, and Mujata Yusuf Ajao. from Basadi Sewing. Basadi Sewing. B-A-S-A-I. No, see, I can't spell. B-A-S-A-D-I. BasadiSewing.ca. If you want to find out more about this local initiative. And, they touched on one thing that I've always thought about is one of the big issues is the amount of clothes that go into landfills. And I often wonder, because we used to have a clothing donation bin in my building, and then it went away. I don't know why, but it was so much. We're just in that mentality, and we recycle. We throw our bottles and plastics into a blue bin, and we do that, and we tried our best to recycle and paper products, so on and so forth. But we just throw old clothes away. Maybe we donate some somewhere, but it's the mentality, and it's often I don't want to say clothes are expensive, especially you have to clothe a family. It's a lot of money, but the idea to recycle or use somebody like Basadi who takes donations, and they can refurbish and resew or what have you, clothing, or takes a bunch of old jeans and make them into a really nice bag. Like, who knows what, they can do all these kinds of different things. But just for us to get into the mentality of recycling old clothes, whether it's donation or to a place that repurposes them or whatever it is maybe something we should think about a little more. Again, I'm not preaching. Coming up at 11 o'clock this morning from 11 till noon is our Friday 4 panel. Always one of my favorite things to do when I'm filling in for Mike here is the Friday 4 panel. Our guest today will be Janice Jim, David Marskell, and Tom Galloway. And we're going to talk about some of the big stories of the week, including, of course, we can't not talk about the Rangers. We're going to be talking about that. Talk about Alberta a little bit. The story this week that maybe Mark Carney is trying to do a little too much for Alberta, and our thanks is going to be, we want out. So are they getting too much based on the idea that they're basically threatening us with running away from home, that kind of thing. So what else are we going to talk about? I think I want to talk a little bit about freedom of speech based on a couple of things. One is the Freedom of Information Act, sort of the dismantling of that here in the province of Ontario by Doug Ford. And I guess part of that would be a little more currently in the news right now is the last show for Stephen Colbert last night, based on what their network, CBS, said was a budget issue. But really, I think many people are thinking, I think rightly so, the shutting down voices that don't agree with the current government. So, freedom of speech and freedom of information, is it under threat? And by the way, did you watch Colbert? I was talking about this earlier. I watched the clips and I just thought it was a nice way to go out. Very positive, very joyful. No Trump jokes. Probably could have done 20 minutes of Trump jokes and we all would have been great, rather than sort of taking it to Trump one more time. He just avoided that. Entertainment, jokes, laughs, cameo appearances, and at the end, Paul McCartney. So, and then he actually literally lights out at the Ed Sullivan Theater. So last one out, shut off the lights, right? So that was it. Some of the, speaking of Colbert, some of the most entertaining segments I saw were penultimate shows or some of the shows earlier. One of my favorite segments, it's online, that's where I watched it, is Letterman's appearance. I think it was even maybe last week. If you remember Letterman, he it's in the early days, he used to throw stuff off the roof of the of the Ed Sullivan Theater, watermelons, what have you. And so it's him and Colbert, and they're on the roof of the Ed Sullivan Theater. and they walk to the edge and say, all right, we're going to, Colbert says, we were not allowed to do this because they said they had a problem with the previous tenant, i.e. Letterman. So today we're doing it anyway. And they have some, he goes, this is genuinely CBS property that we're going to destroy. And they have some couches and chairs. And they say, oh, we need a target on the sidewalk. So they pull off the cover, the tarp, and the target is the CBS logo, the eye. And they start throwing stuff off the roof. And just the 12-year-old giddy glee of two grown men throwing stuff off the roof, to me was so entertaining, so entertaining. They throw a couple of couches and chairs over the roof, and then they go to watermelons. And they do this, and it, of course, hasn't been done since Letterman. And just the stupidity of that, but the joy of it, reminded me how good Letterman was, because I'm often reminded how good that show was, and also how what a great I guess heir to that throne that Colbert has been for 11 years and now not. So maybe we'll get some reminiscences and thoughts from our panel as well, and we'll just talk generally about freedom of speech. So the Friday 4 panel is next on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
And I'll be number 4 on the Friday 4 panel as Mike is away again. 8:30 tonight is the pregame. Mike Farwell, Josh Piercy for Game 1 of the Memorial Cup. Kitchener and Kelowna in Kelowna, the host city. So in the meantime, it's our Friday 4 panel. Please welcome the Vice President of Cycle Waterloo, Janice Jim. Good morning, Janice.
Good morning.
He's the CEO of the museum, David Marskell, back again. Hello, David.
Good morning, everybody.
And retired regional councillor Tom Galloway is here. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Larry, and everyone.
Diving right in, have lots to talk about today, but I thought topic number 1 would be artificial intelligence, the feared demise of the human race, AI, but locally, I mean, some school boards have said, yeah, AI, let's use it in schools, and kids are allowed, even grade 6 and 7. Should AI be a component of education? Janice, I'll start with you, and maybe your general thoughts on AI, if you like. Janice?
I think if they teach them to use it responsibly and develop the critical thinking skills, it's good, because it is being used in workplaces and for research and lots of other tasks. But I think it's a little bit young to start them in, before high school. I think that, kids should learn all the critical thinking, writing skills, how to write a paper. A lot of kids now just use AI to cheat on everything, and they don't know the entire process. And even math, they're using AI to cheat on calculus is solving a problem in equations. So it's definitely a serious problem. So I don't think the school board should be, pushing it too early. I think teaching them how to use it responsibly is good, but not like integrating it into the classrooms.
Yeah, there is that line there. And I was thinking about that. I was speaking to an expert yesterday who said, you don't want to ban these things. He's against complete bans, but then if you're going to introduce it and try and teach it, how do you do that? So it's interesting. David, your thoughts?
Well, I ran the question through AI, and it agreed that AI should be taught in school. So we can just move on, I think.
Yeah, of course.
No conflict of interest there.
Right.
I mean, I don't disagree. I'm not far off where Janice just went. I mean, AI is here, and it's here forever. It's not it's not about to happen. It's very much in everybody's life right now. But I mean, if I was in charge, my suggestion would be AI classes early on. Not so much like things like math class or spelling class, where they're actually used to teach the benefits and the pitfalls and so on of AI. And like Janice, I would think that maybe goes all the way, through grade 6 or even grade 8. Then perhaps in high school, they can begin to use it for some of their schoolwork and the research or however they would use it. But I think I find it odd that they would just allow people to use AI without some learning beforehand to sort of build to understand what it means. And I mean, I fear for the future. And my example, it's a fun one here, but it's a serious one. Like I have a lot of 20, 30-year-olds that I work with, and they can't do math. They can't do quick multiplication of something in their head. Like they have to use a calculator. And old school, my age, we were taught to, the times tables and so on.
Right.
And our brains are active. And I just hope that generations to come, their brains will develop and be challenged and think through things. So, but I'm not in charge, but that's what I would do if I was in charge.
Interesting points that you make that I want to get to, but first I want to get to Tom. Tom, your thoughts on AI?
Well, AI, the good, AI, the bad, that's what the debate is about in all fields with AI. But I'm with Janice and David on the critical thinking piece. I mean, that is a skill unto itself that the students need to learn and not rely on AI to replace that. I've got 2 school teachers in the family, and I just talked about it with one of them, and his suggestion is that use AI for things that you already know what to do or how to do them. And then if you know already how to do them, then you can use AI as a research tool and you can use it as an adjunct. But you shouldn't replace the critical thinking with AI. Now, there can be exceptions to that. So AI would be great, for instance, in math, if both the student and the teacher, or the student couldn't learn a particular concept, the student or the teacher only knew one particular concept, but then they went to AI to figure out, there's another way you can solve this problem, and then use that particular method to solve the problem. But I really am concerned that the critical thinking skills are going to be greatly diminished if this is not put to not some controls, whether that is by age or more generally with some other restrictions.
Janice, when you said critical thinking, that was my first thought, because that's the big thing for me. Somebody my age, I use AI, because I do a lot of writing. So AI will tell me A, B, and C, and I'll go, okay, how do I write that as me? How do I integrate these 3 things, and how do I do that? But I know critical thinking. So, like, how do you learn critical thinking if you're relying on AI? Like, and again, to your point, David, does AI teach you critical thinking if you ask it? Like, I don't know. Critical thinking is so important.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you need to think to learn critical thinking. You need to be tested. You need to work through problems. You need to use your brain. And and like as you say, Larry, I'm beginning to use AI more and more for writing after I've written something. And I used to think I was a reasonably good writer, author, if you will, for certain things. And then when I put it through AI, it's like, whoa, that's so much superior than what I had written. But the content came from me, and it fixed it or corrected it.
Well, I was talking to a book writer the other day, and we were reminiscing about the old days when you were writing a larger essay or book or whatever it is, where you made a list of your facts, and then you went to the library for the afternoon or the day and looked up all the books and gathered your information. So not only did Google replace that, but now Google doesn't even give you the options. AI just tells you. You know what I mean? You don't even have to click on the links. And so it's hard not to use AI, I guess. And Janice, I don't know if you run into that when you're searching things, it's automatically AI is telling you things.
Yeah, I make it a point to not use the AI because I find the summaries are actually inaccurate. And for me, in my work, I want the source material and the actual paper and the source that it came from. There's a lot of research papers that use AI, and they have AI hallucinations in them. They're citing non-existent sources. So everyone should be aware of that, before, trusting everything to an AI bot.
So I'm sensing that what we're all saying is that it's here, it's not going away, but as far as schools go, we should really be concerned as to where and how it's introduced.
I think it's all about critical thinking, Larry. I mean, as we go through our activities of daily living, I mean, we are critically thinking all the time, whether you're shopping at a store and you're discerning between one product or another. I mean, if you lose the skill for critical thinking in all the various activities, mental activities that we do all day long, and all you're going to do, someday you're just going to have a port into your brain that's going to be automatically connected to AI to do all your thinking for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to have a critical thinking skill to live a highly actualized life.
Well, even to David's point about the multiplication tables, we thought we were learning 9 times 9, 81, by the way, but we were actually learning other things by learning basic math things, for example, weren't we, David? We were learning how to think.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you bring up an interesting point I hadn't thought about is how does this impact libraries of the future? I mean, libraries, you go to read a book, like just a nonfiction or a fiction book or whatever. But in terms of reference libraries and so on, what happens? How does this impact them in the future? Maybe we don't need a Trump library. Just thinking out loud.
So I've just written a podcast about this that I'm about to record. Data centers. They used to be called libraries, and now they're building these massive data centers due to AI that I say on the road to extinction, here's a new danger to be frightened of. And it's these massive, what are basically libraries of the world's knowledge, to me, David, are these huge data centers that cover acres of land and use too much water and pollute the environment and are unsightly and create a hum that gives you a headache and if you live nearby and everything. So there's that. If anybody wants to chime in on the concern over massive data centers now that are coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're not too far off the mark in terms of replacing libraries. It's becoming a digital library or whatever you want to refer to it as. But it's interesting, even though that may be a phenomenon that is occurring, surveys of people in communities such as ours, one of the highest revered services that municipalities provide is their library service. Yeah. It's only second to community trails. Community trails comes out hot the first on the survey, and libraries comes out on the second. So the public still has a very high reverence for libraries.
Well, and I'm glad
like
to
the
hear
physical
that.
library, the KPL, that kind of library.
Oh, and I'm all for library. Believe me, I don't say data centers should replace I think they are. It's not even the data center. It's your own personal device that's replaced the library. But all that information has to be somewhere. If it's not on your machine, it's in a cloud, and a cloud is data, and there's millions of terabytes of data, and it's going into these machines that are humming outside of small towns these days. So that to me is interesting as well. That these data centers, and I'm being extreme here to make a point, but data centers are going to destroy the planet so that we can have AI that will destroy the people on the planet. So is anybody going to stop and go, hey, where are we going on this? Could we hit pause maybe? I don't know. Because that's been suggested, hitting pause. I don't know that we could do that collectively. Could we?
There's some people that would suggest we're past the point of no return on AI. How do you regulate it? How would the world come together to regulate it? One country could regulate it, another one wouldn't, and you could still access it. It's a phenomenally huge problem.
Yeah, and that's a great point, although a bit of a dark one, I guess, because and I feel responsible kind of painting the picture of no hope in the dark picture here. I don't mean to do that. Because again, and I think, Tom, you said it, the good AI, the bad AI. What's the good AI? I was talking to somebody yesterday, a high school student, who used AI to develop a new hospital device that'll probably save lives, and if it ever gets going. And I'm like, yeah, there's a wonderful part of AI that's out there.
Oh, yeah. Healthcare, AI is unbelievable in healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to give a similar example of an app, an AI that you can scan a mole on your, and it'll tell you if it's cancerous. Like, and it's been created by doctors. It's not just some AI thing, but they're utilizing it for good.
Mm-hmm.
The healthcare field, it is very, very good. Even doctors having notes transcribed and so on, so they have more time to meet with patients. I mean, there is positives to it.
Well, let's maybe stop there so that we can end on a positive and move on to freedom of information and freedom of speech, which we will do in our very next segment. This is the Friday 4 panel, 570 News Radio. Back with more of the panel in a moment. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell, and you know why? Because it's Memorial Cup. It's Memorial Cup, or I was calling it Memorial Weekend in Canada as well as the U.S. So 8:30 tonight for the pregame, 9 o'clock, Josh Piercy and Mike Farwell here on 570 News Radio, all the action of the Rangers. Our Friday 4 panel today, Tom Galloway, retired regional counselor, David Marskell, CEO of the museum, and the vice president, vice president, sorry, of Cycle Waterloo Region is Janice Jim, all here today. Our next topic, I guess, involves a couple of things, freedom of speech and freedom of information, and, vis-a-vis Colbert going off the air last night, which people looked as a freedom of speech kind of thing, although maybe not affecting us directly. But back to, I guess, Ontario, should we be concerned that Premier Ford dismantled basically the Freedom of Information Act? And we'll go in reverse order. Tom, I'll start with you.
Well, he's dismantling it for himself is what he's doing, and trying to avoid scrutiny. And that is the key motivation behind this. And it's similar to the Colbert thing, where Colbert was providing scrutiny in a different type of medium for Trump and his minions, and they didn't like that. So pressure was brought to bear to suppress, the scrutiny that the media provides us, and it's enshrined in their constitution. It's enshrined in ours as well. And what I find really kind of disheartening about it all is at the provincial level with Premier Ford is, again, to avoid scrutiny. And they want to do things behind closed doors and in the back rooms, and not have those meetings subject to scrutiny. But on the other hand, if you're a municipality or a hospital or a university or any other government-sponsored or supported organization, you've got to abide by the open government legislation. And the regulations there are very strict, as they need to be and should be, and are appropriate. But they make those regulations for the municipalities and other institutions that they fund, but they don't live by them by any means. And it's all intended to avoid scrutiny by the media and to maintain the power and the influence that they enjoy being the government.
David, since we're focusing more on the Freedom of Information Act or any part of this topic, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm 100% concerned. I mean, what's happening in the U.S. and how they're trying to control the media and are controlling the media, and the billionaires who own the media are falling in line. It's communism. I mean, they're just controlling the media, and which goes to how people get elected and what messages come through and so on, which is, it's just not right. And on the omnibus bill, the provincial one, it's certainly unique in Canada, what he's putting through, and especially the bit about retroactive back to 1988. So that's going to just shut the door on, I don't know, probably thousands of requests for information that are already in the pipeline. It's all over the board in Canada. I mean, I did a little research, didn't use AI. And Nova Scotia, I don't think I used AI. Nova Scotia allows full scrutiny of the politicians and the civil servants. Saskatchewan's a little more strict, but what's happening in Ontario is the most clandestine, if that's the right word. I recall when I was at Queen's Park, I was chief of staff for a cabinet minister, and what was acceptable back then were offices like cabinet ministers' offices. They had a separate little office, and it could have a computer in there that had nothing to do with the government's work. And if you wanted to do something that had to do with politics or the constituency office, that computer was used, and it was not FOIable. It was not allowed. Yeah. So that was what happened in the day. But I guess it doesn't really matter because that's when I was there. That's now covered by the retroactive clause.
Sure. Yeah, it would be. Before we go to break, I want to make sure I get Janice in on this and her thoughts.
Oh, it's kind of disgusting how much the damage the Ford government can do with their majority. Completely dismantling the FOI system is yeah, it's horrible. Like, where's, our constitutional rights to information, to see how the government conducts its business, is lost. And all the journalists who work on stories, like all the scandals that we've found out in this session is from FOI requests. So obviously Ford is trying to cover his tracks and just shutting everything down.
I hate to be that guy, but I thought they worked for us. That old, it sounds naive, but that was always the whole idea of all of this, is that you work for us. It's our Friday 4 panel. Going to move on to another topic here. And I know what the topics are. I just don't know in what order we were going to do them. So let me just cheat here quickly and go, yes, Alberta will be in this next discussion. It's the Friday 4 panel. Back in a moment.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
And with me on the Friday 4 panel today, Janice Jim, Vice President of Cycle-Waterloo Region, David Marskell, CEO of the museum, and retired regional councillor Tom Galloway. And we'll start with you, David, on this. The general question is, Prime Minister Mark Carney giving too much to Alberta because they're threatening to separate. And there's been a little update on that story today. I guess they're kind of agreed to ask the question, which is not good enough for one side and not good enough for the other either, for different reasons. But anyway, is Mark Carney giving too much to Alberta at this point, David?
Well, let me begin where you went, and then I'll come back to the main question.
Okay, sure.
I think what the Premier is doing in this referendum, the notion that came out today, is keeping the focus on that and keeping passion and people focused over there. Probably she believes that it won't happen, that they won't secede from Canada. But if it all went away and she just accepted what the courts overturned and there was no referendum, then all the passion and all the focus would come back on her government. And so I think politically, it's kind of this major way of deflecting anything coming at her for a while. Anyway, I think that Carney is doing a good job with that. I think it benefits all Canadians. I think, notwithstanding we should have solar power, nuclear power, and whatever, we need a pipeline line to export and sell our natural resources where we're looking for cleaner solutions. And politically, it happens to also be a major benefit for him, for the Prime Minister's majority. But there are examples of this across Canada, like these major projects. This is not unique, what he's doing in Alberta.
Janice?
I think he's taken like a step backwards in our environmental policies. And this pipeline is not even going to be built ready anytime soon. It's just a paper fantasy at this point. And he hasn't done any consultation with a lot of the groups that in BC, because building a pipeline in Alberta doesn't matter because it's got to connect to the coast, and he hasn't done any of that work. So I think right now is maybe giving a bone to Alberta to hold them dissenting right now. But I don't think this is going to happen.
Janice, I'm with you on that, and I think, and I'm giving him a lot of credit here, but I think Carney knows that because you're right. It has to go through BC. It's not a pipeline from Alberta to the ocean. You can't. It's BC, and BC's already said, well, hold on. And I think Carney knows that it has to go through BC and Indigenous lands, and there's going to be those protests and court cases and challenges, and when it gets into that takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years. So I think he knows it'll never be done, but it's an appeasement. That's just my thing. Tom, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think appeasement's a good word, actually, Larry, and I think there's a lot of that going on in this issue. I first want to just agree with David on what the Premier's trying to do. It's a political move to try to mitigate the impacts of the separation matter as it relates to this matter. And I guess I suppose that's good politics from her point of view. On the pipeline itself, I'm going to agree. Environmentally, it's a step backwards. On the other hand, there's another imperative that's at play here too, in terms of trying to disengage our economy from the south, and the need to not rely so much on our trade situation with the U.S. So we have all this heavy crude that we ship to the States. They refine it, they make money on it, and then they put tariffs on us because it causes a trade imbalance, although there really isn't a trade imbalance when you look at it on a per capita system. So we've got to start taking some of these things into our own hands and into our own control. So yes, going through BC will be maybe impossible, and maybe this is all performative. But I do think we have to at least make attempts, and we are in other areas, to disentangle ourselves from the American influence, because that's just not going to go away for a long time. But I will, just as one caveat, if this pipeline has a life and is going to go forward, then there needs to be even accelerated decarbonizing efforts elsewhere in the economy, put on the shoulders of the oil companies to more, not just make it a wash, but to move the decarbonizing schedule forward, whether it's through the tax system or other initiatives with electrification and so on.
I know right now the actual number is in a minority who is willing, because the Forever Canada movement is bigger in Alberta. Having said that, does anybody remember 95 when the Quebec question came up, and My Canada Includes Quebec, and we got on buses and went to Montreal and Quebec City? And my point on this is anybody going to get on a bus to go to Alberta when they vote? Is there a grassroots? I hear more let them go than I hear we need to keep Alberta. And does that mean anything if there's not that support across Canada for Alberta?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, and I remember they showed up in Quebec on horseback from Alberta. Like they did everybody was
Right.
was doing that. I mean, the other thing that this opens the door for is the U.S. to get in bed with Alberta. And, there goes the money and the oil and all that. But it also starts to break Canada up literally. And I'm sure that's happening right now. We know that's happening, that some of the separatists are meeting with Trump's people and so on. It's a very slippery slope for sure. And Carney needs to do whatever he can from his office to mitigate anything that could happen.
I see the similarities, Larry. The Quebec situation, though, there were differences. There were certainly cultural differences, language differences that really played into their referendum. Those don't exist in Alberta. Alberta's separatist movement is basically on the economy and those matters. And the polling now suggests that they would be unlikely to be successful. But the rest of Canada better not take it for granted. And I would hope that when the referendum takes place, if it does, there would be, the rest of the country would come to get involved and support the no side, presuming it's the no side, depending on how the question's worded. So I would hope to.
And Janice, I didn't really mean get on a bus literally in this case, because it's a lot longer bus ride, but you know what I mean in general terms. You think there might be this support across Canada? Please stay.
Yeah, but I think right now the referendum is just, should we have a referendum on it? It's a question about whether. So we're not quite at that stage yet. And also Alberta's a little bit different. I don't think they like having outsiders, i.e. the rest of Canada, telling them what to do. I think it would probably rub them the wrong way. So as Canadians, we have to find other ways of like showing our support for them staying.
Well, yeah, okay. I agree with that part of it, but they get so much more than they talk about. They're always, oh, poor us, ignored, and I'm like, actually, you're not. So I don't know what you're talking about,
But there's always been this friction with Alberta, hasn't there? Like, what did they call us? I don't want to swear online, but they let those people freeze in the dark and about oil and all of that, but way back when.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I'm surprised somebody in Ontario hasn't started a referendum about, do we want Alberta to stay in Canada?
Right. That's well, that would be very interesting, a little antagonistic, but I might get behind it.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting question. Well, yeah, it's an interest. Well, this is a little trite, but it's interesting times. It's interesting times. I want to talk about our great Memorial weekend here in Canada. It's the start of the Memorial Cup, and our Kitchener Rangers game day in the Memorial Cup for the Kitchener Rangers. We just haven't been able to say that for a long time, and we finally can. So we'll talk about that. Maybe do a little rah as well when we get back with the Friday 4 panel. This is 570 News Radio. Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell today here with David Marskell of the museum. We have Janice Jim, Cycle Waterloo Region, and Tom Galloway, retired regional counselor, on our Friday 4 panel. And we've talked about a lot of different things that people have been talking about this week and may continue to talk about next hour on our open phones segment, our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. And I've been mentioning the reason I'm in for Mike Farwell these days and next week is Mike is doing his duties with the Kitchener Rangers, and this time in the Memorial Cup. First time in almost 2 decades. And the host city this year is far, far away in Kelowna, British Columbia. Any plans, anyone, whoever wants to start, for actual game 1 and game day today? Is it a go somewhere and watch with a crowd, or what are you going to do for game day? David, anybody can start.
I mean, I didn't grow up here, so I don't think I have the same passion as people who did. But I'm really pleased for the community. I'm really pleased that they have a winning team to support, which is unique. I mean, having been born in Toronto, I haven't had that luxury with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I have been to every Stanley Cup final game since '67 that the Leafs have been in. In '67, I watched it in black and white, but very, very, very happy for people that are supporting the Rangers. I wish people had the same passion for the arts and culture in this community. That's a different show. But go Rangers! It should be good. They have a good chance to win the whole thing, I think.
Yeah, they really do. Really do. Game day plans?
I'll be watching the game tonight. It starts, look, in broadcast you said starts at 8:30, but the game at 9. All games are at 9 o'clock because of the time change between here and there. I have to be a little more cautious about my comments because I've worked for the Kitchener Rangers or with the Kitchener Rangers for 56 years as an off-ice official. So I have been there a long time to see the ups and downs, and it is really great to see another up 18 years now since the last visit to the Memorial Cup. It really is something when you go to all the games to see the how the enthusiasm built this year from the beginning of the season to the middle of the season when they made a lot of roster changes, and after they lost the Memorial Cup hosting for next year and decided this was the year to run for the cup, and they made some really significant and really great roster changes, and then the enthusiasm built as they went up the standings, won the division, and then of course went through the playoffs with only 2 losses and end up in the Memorial Cup for the first time in 18 years. And the crowds and the enthusiasm in the building, and I think that's been great for the community. The rally downtown on Tuesday was large and boisterous, and there's a lot of parties that are happening in people's homes to watch the games, but the ones that Kitchener is playing in particularly, and of course if they make the final, it'll be kind of really interesting, really, really good for the community.
I think so too. Janice, plans, if any?
I would have to admit that I don't really follow the Kitchener Rangers, but I agree with everyone else that it's a great thing for the community. It's nice to have all that excitement, and it's like a nice kickoff to the summer sports season. So lots of stuff happening. Like Kitchener's hosting World Cup watch parties downtown, so it's always nice to see the downtown square being used for community events.
Sure.
So Janice, when they come back with the Memorial Cup, you have to organize a bike tour through the community with the Memorial Cup. Eh?
I'm very impressed that Tom, you'll be awake at 9 o'clock to watch the game. Like, do you have a nap first, or did you just watch the first period, or how does that break down?
No. I'll be up for it. I might nod off from here and there, David, but no, I think I'll make it to the end of the game.
Yeah, well, somebody asked me if I watched Colbert last night, and I'm like, 11:30. When's the last time I saw 11:30? No, I don't think so. So, but 9 o'clock, it's a little bit easier. How come the bars aren't open till 4 a.m.? How come Doug didn't let the bars be open for Memorial Cup?
Oh, just FIFA. Just FIFA. Yeah,
I guess so.
Yeah, because he is obsessed with alcohol. So I'm surprised that at least in Kitchener, Waterloo region, he didn't make an exception.
Well, I was tongue in cheek there, but David, to your point, I was kind of thinking about that, about how we do rally around sports, whether it's Memorial Cup here or FIFA coming up or a Stanley Cup playoffs if it's relevant to the community or what have you, and I'm trying to think of other events where people do that outside of sports. There has to be some concerts, movies, so like to do more with the arts. Yeah, because I'm like you, David. I wish people would get more kind of a rally around those things as well more.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Janice, you have?
I would say our summer events in Kitchener-Waterloo are always, like, the schedule is amazing. We have so many music and cultural festivals, right? With the Blues Fest, the Jazz Fest, Pride in the Park, Cultron. So I always look forward to the summer because there's so much happening and it's all free. And like I love how our city, both cities and the region, like support those. Those are my like highlights in the summer.
Yeah. Those are great points. Those are great points. All yeah. I'm sorry, David. I thought you were going to chime in on this. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I was just trying to think of when we see large crowds to come downtown and so on. I mean, this is kind of sports, but not really. When Terry Fox crossed the country, when he showed up in every city, like there was masses of people that were there to greet him and celebrities. I think Daryl Sittler was in Toronto, and I know he ran through Kitchener and so on. But I can't. There's most things are related to sports. I'm not sure what else would bring out a big crowd like was at City Hall this week.
Now, I did talk radio in Niagara for a number of years, and we had the Ice Dogs there in direct competition to the Kitchener Rangers. But it was interesting for me to see just junior hockey, how it draws it's a different community feel, and it draws a different crowd in a way to, say, the NHL. I mean, hockey fans are hockey fans, I get it, but there's just this other aspect to a major junior team like the Rangers that you wouldn't see anywhere else except in another city that has a junior team, don't you think?
Well, I think the junior hockey, whether it's at the OHL level or junior BC or whatever, it's a lot more relatable to the average person, and it's a lot more accessible financially, and there's very little travel involved as well. The Kitchener Rangers, though, are even better positioned because they are community owned. They're one of only 2 teams in Canada that are community owned. So I think people in Kitchener, understand that. I mean, we own it, not the municipality but the season subscribers. And there's a new corporate structure they put into place, but it's still not owned by an individual that can buy and sell the franchise. And Owen Sound just got sold for however many $1 million. That would likely never happen in Kitchener. So there's a community ownership element to the Kitchener Rangers that doesn't exist anywhere else, and I think that has an impact on how revered the organization, the team is.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry that we lost that community ownership with the Kitchener Panthers baseball team.
Right.
It's changed a lot. It's different now.
Well, the league changed. I mean, the league went semi-professional, and the community-owned model just didn't work anymore. But and it wouldn't work for the Kitchener Rangers either if the OHL went to a semi-professional. I don't think it would work. You need deep pockets and corporate.
I think we all agree on Go Rangers Go. All the way Memorial Cup. Tom Galloway, retired regional counselor. Thank you. David Marscal, CEO of the museum. Thank you. Janice Jim, Cycle Waterloo Region President, Vice President. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Go Rangers. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Larry. Bye now.
Go Rangers.
Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell with the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour next on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning.
The 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I forgot to mention that. I should have mentioned that because I wore a shirt with a collar. And I did that yesterday. That's 2 days in a row now. I've worn a shirt with a collar. So, that's me getting ready for Rogers TV. So you're welcome on that. Yeah, there we go. What is on your mind? The phone numbers that you just heard are 519-570-2545, 1-800-570-5715, and star 570 on your cell. Let's get to the calls. Here's Grant. Grant, go ahead. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Yeah, Rogers, you should let the guy that's picking up the phones have off for the whole Memorial Cup. Come on, behave yourself. Come on.
If that was up to me, I would. Sure, if I could make those decisions, I would.
I think it's going to be a win for us tonight. I think it's going to be a 5-2 win, and then for tomorrow, because both teams, Everett and our Rangers, are pretty high-powered octane teams. I think it's going to go 60 minutes without any scoring and double overtime with less than a minute left. And I think Kitchener should make – I get a kicker, Kyle. I think they should make him
as a new mascot or something, or yeah, I just get a kick out of when he's yelling or screaming for the team. Or they should have him in between the play-by-play when Mike's calling the game and calling the goals being scored by us, and have him.
Well, a good idea, Grant, might be, instead of music or an organist like they have at arenas and stadiums, they have Kyle.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that would bring.
No, and Grant, when you were talking about that 0-0 overtime game, you're talking about Monday, right, in Everett?
Oh, that's Monday? Oh, dang it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you're talking about the Everett game, right? You don't think that's going to be tonight. You're thinking that might go the way with Everett. It'll be a long game.
I think so, because they're pretty. I know when I watch Everett play, they're pretty strong, right? They're not a fly by night team. They don't want to give up many goals, same as Kitchener. Even though Kitchener, the series before this, I think it was series before this, where we were down 3-0 in one of the games, and I think it'll be. Yeah.
All right. Well, those are good predictions, Grant. Thank you. Appreciate the call. Yeah. And Grant was talking about Kyle yesterday, who came on and gave, during this hour of the program yesterday, came on and gave such specific predictions for game outcomes that I was so impressed. And then, of course, was a great cheerleader for the team as well. But I was so impressed with that. And I think Grant's just kind of playing off on Kyle from yesterday, giving very specific predictions about outcomes. Other than, I think the Rangers will take it. He was like down to times and games and scores, and it was kind of cool to hear. Here's John. John, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Yeah, good afternoon. I hope you're doing well.
I am. Thank you. Hope you are too.
Well, I'm just starting my campaign to run for mayor of Kitchener. I got all the paperwork yesterday, and I got a couple signatures, and I just want to announce it on the radio.
Oh, sure. And John, you're not pulling my leg here. You're serious. You're doing this.
Well, yeah, I'm just getting started. I need to get 25 signatures. I've got a few. And I grew up I was born in Kitchener to parents who immigrated after the Second World War with my two older brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran once before against Ken Sealing when he was the last regional chairman. Last time he won. And he was my history teacher at WCI before then, and I always thought he was a little old, but I'm going to be 70 soon, and I have a lot of experience. Like I went to U of W, and I went to Laurier, and I went to a couple universities in California, and I lived out in Calgary. And I have two children who live in this area. So when I retired at 55, I came back here. And I know they were having a lot of trouble with water and sewage and garbage. And, people have to work hard is what I learned from my parents. And you have to pay for whatever you get in this country. Like when they came over, they didn't know anything about money, and they had to learn to find a job to make money so they could live and support their family. And that's just a good work ethic, I think.
Yeah. Work ethic. I'm big on that, and that being passed from generation to generation. John, let me ask you, what prompted you to want to run this time around? Was there something specific, or just in general you decided?
I know what we need. We need clean air, clean water, a little bit of food, and a place to call home. And that's what I want to try to instill in everybody somehow. I don't know if I'll win, but that's what my goal is, to be the next mayor of Kitchener.
All right, sir.
And if we can all concentrate on being of service to each other, maybe the rest of the world might come. Because we got so many people from all these different countries living here now. And I know a lot of them want to help, but they all got to make money. And that's hard to do these days, the way people are acting, especially a lot of the leaders of our country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think if we can get that started here, maybe, when they go back to wherever they came from, they can try to find out what they learned from us. When I went to university here, I knew the Prince of Saudi Arabia, and their system is so different. I mean, you just have to qualify for a job, and then, everything's looked after. But here you need to make money. And I don't know if we could ever come up with a system where you don't need money, but, we need money. So that's why I'm running.
All right. Well, John, thanks for declaring here on this program.
By the way,
and
my last name is Wolf, W-O-L-F.
All right.
And John's J-O-H-N. I know there's all sorts of different ways of people spelling it, but if you see John Wolf on the ballot, put your X beside John Wolf.
All right. Well, John, if you get the signatures and you qualify, I'm sure we'll be seeing your name and hearing from you between now and October 26th for sure. Hopefully many times. Thanks, John.
I remember running for regional chair, and it was fun just learning everything, because that was always my goal at university, to get a PhD and, in life. And I can use all my education, and I have friends all over the place. A lot of them up here in Kitchener. Like last time, I just ran it on my own dime, but it was very difficult. I
can imagine. Wow.
Oh, yeah, because, everything changes so quickly, and that's part of the problem. And in the old days, when I was born at KW Hospital, I got there because my two brothers and my aunt and my grandmother, and they needed somebody to work there. And back then, when my grandmother retired, the top floor was for people who had worked there, and they lived together. And then they said, okay, you can leave now, but you got to find a place to live.
Right.
And we tried to support my grandmother, but she ended up in one of those nursing homes, and she hated it.
I can imagine. A bit. I can only imagine, I guess. But John, we're going to have to go there. Oh, John went. Okay. Well, John Wolf, candidate for mayor, possibly. All the best to you, John. And in general terms, whether you win or even do well, it's good to see involvement in local politics. We were talking to David Alton earlier, who is an official candidate for mayor of Kitchener for the fall election. And one of the things I talked about then was, get involved. At the very least, vote. So when I hear from people who say, well, I'm actually going to try and run and make a difference, good for you. Good for you. We need more of that on all levels of government, but especially local. Here's Frank. Frank, go ahead. Hey, Frank.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm on the air?
Yes, sir, you are.
Excellent. Oh, good to talk to you, Larry. It's, yes, it's Frank. Now I can use Farwell Force Member 365.
Okay.
As he's got the beautiful group of people who are a force for change, a force for good in the region. I just wanted to reach out today. I noticed you've been having some local candidates on. I have a little announcement to make. In 4 years' time, in other words, the next municipal election, I will be running. But in the meantime, it's more of a marathon for me because I want to learn the ropes, obviously, and to make contacts wherever and wherever they are. And in particular, I've reached out to Stephanie Gertz in Wilmot and also Scott Hamilton's campaign. In fact, he was my chief inspiration for running. And of course, if you know his story, he's a literal marathon, long distance runner.
Right.
Anyways, my message and the reason why I'm getting into it is you have all these different problems. They all are interconnected, and really, it's because of connection, or in this case, I'm starting a war on disconnection. Just having a radio show like that you and Mike have, and that Rob used to have out in Stratford, Rob Reeford. I've actually reached out to him as well, and we've had a chat. These are all very important to have in our community as focuses on connection. And of course, our arts, our music, the museum, the CEO gentleman you had on this morning. I'm also going to reach out to the other fellow that you had on that's running for the mayor of Kitchener.
Right.
I just put my name into his system, so hopefully he can give me a call. Now, I work 70 hours a week on the road as a long-distance truck driver, but still, I'm going to find time and make time to attend events this summer and to really put some campaigns, maybe a little bit of fire under them. Whatever I can do, it's all hands on deck. The homelessness is an issue. Addiction is an issue. We had Kelly DeRitter, who is the MP for Kitchener Centre. She came out in the House of Commons just a little over 2 weeks ago and admitted her origin story and her struggles with this. And she's an MP now. So if she can do it, I can do it. And
I like that attitude,
message.
Frank.
That's my message for today. And people have known me, and I've called in for this show a couple dozen times now in the past 2 months. But the momentum is building, and I'm building the connections and contacts and staying connected and continuing this war on disconnection.
Thank you, Frank. I think that's so important. Thanks for the call, man. There's a general movement across North America which deals with that, and that's why it's so important what Frank is attempting to do because of the so-called connectivity of us all over these last 2 decades, and certainly in the last decade, especially when smartphones became ubiquitous, is all this connectivity has actually isolated us. So we don't need people, we just need our phone. It's not what's happening, it's what else is happening. So the movement is to connect, what Frank said, to get out there and mingle, to join a bowling league, to go to a street festival, to go to don't listen to the game at home. I shouldn't say that. You should listen to the game, take your radio. But I'm saying get in a group of people, meet some people that are out of your social strata or your comfort zone and reconnect with people. I mean, the long-term benefits of that are terrific. And the opposite of that is actually dangerous, I think, for humans to be isolated. So yeah, if it's about connection, I'm with you, Frank. Here's George. George, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Larry. How you keeping?
I'm keeping well. How are you?
Good. Nice to hear you again. I used to always follow you when you were on. If you remember me, George from Cambridge.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. And you're doing well these days?
I'm feeling like $100.
Can I talk about the Rangers?
Sure.
Thank you for what you're saying. You're doing a lot of promo for them. It's a great time of year right now to be living in this region. I really hope they do well. You and Mike Farwell are doing great with that particular portfolio. I wish them all the best, and I'm definitely going to be following them all throughout Memorial Day, Canada.
All right. Thank you, George.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. I've been calling it since the beginning of the show. This is a Memorial Day weekend in Canada and the U.S. The U.S. Memorial Day is Monday. Our official Memorial Day will be May 31st, which is the date of the final game of the Memorial Cup. So there's my little play on Memorial for everyone this weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend in Canada as well because of the Rangers. This is 570 News Radio. Larry in for Mike with more in a moment. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. As usual in this hour, it's whatever you want to talk about. Phones are wide open. You want to chime in on anything from the Rangers to what did we talk about this morning? Well, we talked on our Friday 4 panel. We talked about Alberta, separation there. The latest there is they've agreed that there should be a question, that there should be a referendum. That's kind of what the concession was from Danielle Smith today. And I forget who said it earlier on the panel, but it is kind of interesting because I think she is politically kind of in the middle here because the majority of Albertans are a forever Canada. They don't want to separate. Not that the separation movement isn't, big and strong and have machinery to try and convince other people, but the majority of the people still are Albertans, want to stay in Canada. So she's got to be careful there because she'd like to appease them and stay in government. But if she's too light on the referendum question, then she's going to just tick off a lot of people in her party and a lot of people who might vote for her. And some say that however she handles the referendum question in Alberta is going to affect her leadership of the party, that somebody might say, well, okay, whatever. We don't care who's going to ever vote for you because we're going to take you away as leader of the party. And that UCP, UPS, whatever, I can never remember the initials of the United Conservative Party. Anyway, Alberta, they are very volatile anyway when it comes to leaders. I think they've had more leaders than England has had prime ministers in the last, it's up there. So Danielle Smith desperately trying to hang on to that as well. Although, we were talking about it on the panel, the MAGA types talking to separatist kind of people and Americans looking at Alberta as an opportunity for them. I guess. I mean, you don't have to go back too far, like January 2025, if you recall. Danielle Smith, as a guest of Kevin O'Leary, popping up at Mar-a-Lago on a weekend in January of 2025, where O'Leary arranged a meeting between Trump and Danielle Smith. And they talked oil and trade and tariffs and who knows what else. Now, anything come of that? Was it anything, solid? Who knows? I don't think so. But it was happening. It happened. So there's that. Anyway, it's whatever you want to talk about. The 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. More in a moment here on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Hold on, let me see if I got this straight. If my address ends in 11, I can water my lawn at 2, 4, 6, and 8. No. If I have 0 lawn, I can water at 1, 3, and 5. If I wake up at 5:30, I don't know. You figure it out. But no, actually, I'm kidding. It's a good system. It's if you have to have a system, it's a good system. It's fairly easy. I'm complicating it for no reason. Even number address, odd number address, odd days, even days, and we got to do it. Got to do it to ensure the water supply. That's not necessarily, I think, unique to us. I think a lot of people are facing challenges. There's a story yesterday too where there was, and I wrote down the numbers. I don't know where I wrote them down though. But anyway, the increase in carbon emissions last winter from basically snowplows and clearing machines. Because we had and it was a significant number of increase in the pollution because we had more snow events. And so a concern because, of course, you don't want to have too many emissions because climate change. But I was like, well, climate change is probably a contributor to the increase in bigger snow events. So we, till we have super powerful electric plows, then we're going to, it's one against the other. How do you balance that? I thought it was a little bit. Is it ironic? I don't know. Is that irony, or is it something else? But nevertheless, it's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Whatever you want to talk about. Something I noticed that people aren't talking about, which is, I guess, kind of dumb to bring up on the show. If nobody's talking about it or nobody cares, why are you, Larry? Well, let me ask. Not a lot of talk about Ebola, which is kind of good because I know I brought it up. I just brought it up. I said the word out loud. Now maybe it's in your mind. Sorry. But I think people kind of aren't talking about it because hopefully everybody's telling us the truth that it's I don't think we've declared it a worldwide pandemic yet, a pandemic emergency, but it's serious. There's no vaccine for this particular strain. Although, I find that really odd. So there's no vaccine for this strain of Ebola, which they were aware of. So now it's going to be at the earliest 2 months before testing can begin on a variant of a vaccine that would battle this variant of the virus. And then testing in another. So in an ideal situation, it might be 3 or 4 months before a vaccine is available, more than likely 6 to 8 months. So I'm like, well, if you can do a vaccine and you knew about the variant, why wouldn't you be working on this vaccine? Because there's no money in it because you're big pharma. Whereas now there's money in it, like not you and I or the Congolese are going to be paying, but governments are, and big pharma's going to make. So why wouldn't you work on the vaccine ahead of time and know it? Oh yeah, that variant, if it ever comes up, yeah, we got a vaccine. Don't worry, we got your back. Don't worry about it. But they don't. And the fact that it's not, like even was it yesterday or the day before, where a guy from the Congo gets on a plane in Paris and he's going to fly to Detroit, I think it was. Paris to Detroit, I guess a very popular plane route, I guess very popular destinations back and forth. But nevertheless, okay, so Paris to Detroit, and the U.S., because of their policies, go, no, you can't land here with a passenger from the Congo. So they diverted to Pierre-Elliott Trudeau Airport in Montreal, took the guy off, put him on a plane back to Paris, and then flew on to Detroit. And they tested the guy first, and he was asymptomatic, which means, we don't think you have it. But nevertheless, how about everybody that was on the plane with him, or at least people, because Ebola is close contact. Now, close contact means even beyond sitting next to somebody on a plane for a few hours, but that could be enough. So even when we get that close, I think for a lot of us, the hairs on the back of our neck, if we have hairs on the back of our neck, go up a little bit because we go, oh, well, it was in Canada. It's not a problem. It's not their problem. Just as we thought at the beginning, COVID was their problem. It was somebody else's problem. And then it was our problem. In a blink, it seemed, right? And that's the fear of anything, even if it's not like COVID at all. It's Ebola. Everybody's like, ooh, pandemic, disease, no vaccine. Okay. So I think maybe there's two things at play. One is that it's actually not a pandemic and they've got it under control and they're doing all the right things and we believe them, or we don't want to talk about it because we're just afraid. We've been through one once, and once is enough. One per century is enough. Thank you very much. But I noticed now there's not a lot of talk about it. What are we doing? What are we doing? So maybe it's those two reasons. One, they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and two, it's not really a threat. But still don't like it. I was thinking like it's not a pandemic unless 300,000 people are converging from all over the world on your part of the world, like say for FIFA, or I'm not being flip here. Or it only passes from person to person in close contact. Like, for example, if 300,000 people pack the streets for FIFA, like, geez, what a time for this to happen when the world is going to be focused on Canada and the US. And then again, it's Canada and the US, which my point there is they're massive. They're massive. It's not like play a game in Toronto, take the train to Vancouver, and play tomorrow. It's not that at all. It's the same in the States, really, for the games. They're spread across. So, although it's interesting. I'm a football fan when it comes to Euro Cup and World Cup. And so I guess eventually I'll watch World Cup soccer because those are times when I like to watch football. But I don't know if I'm getting the excitement of it that I guess maybe I should have by this point. I don't know. That's odd too, isn't it? A person I know quite well is involved in security in the city of Toronto. And let me just say that it's going to be great, and they sound like they're super prepared. But also the concern is that it's just going to be huge. And there's everybody's going to be working overtime. And let's face it, when you ask 300,000 people to show up in your city, you can't just magically widen the streets and, you can extend the stadium, but other than that, you can't just build everything bigger suddenly and make room for people. So it's going to be interesting from a security point of view as well. Now, 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Here's Happy Phil. Phil, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
I'm going to talk about a subject we don't talk about a lot on 570, and that's NASCAR, but in a very broad term, and that is when somebody who's not liked in a sport, and it's very competitive, like football, hockey, boxing, and you've got your heroes and you've got your foes, and both the competitors and the fans, and then tragedy strikes, as happened yesterday in NASCAR with the Bush family. If I find it interesting how people can just only put everything aside and take it about the person. I find that very interesting how people like Kyle. I've hated Kyle Busch. I've been there at Michigan when the fans are booing him. You have the bleachers are booing this person. The other drivers don't like them. Yet when tragedy strikes, that's all put aside and all you hear is accolades. So a lot of respect to anybody who's involved in competitive sports, and the minute a player is hurt on the ice or on the track or wherever, that everything goes aside and they put that, they put it aside and they honor the person. So big shout out to all the NASCAR people who are saying the nicest things, to the Bush family this week during a trying time.
It is. I'm glad you brought that up, Phil. I was wondering if anybody was going to. I was actually going to talk about Kyle Busch, 41. And I hate to use this phrase, but just like that, suddenly.
Yeah. Nobody saw it coming. He was put in the hospital. He wasn't feeling well. People are waiting to see if he's going to race the next weekend. And the darkest of news comes out, and the whole racing world is just supportive of him. That's just great to see. It's a real sign of the fans and the competitors.
I agree, Phil. Thanks for the call. I'm glad you mentioned that because it is kind of a big deal. Thanks for the call, Phil. Kyle Busch, 41, NASCAR driver, many-time champion, just won a truck race like a week or two ago when he was being interviewed at the end of the race that he won. The interviewer said, "Well, you had another win here. And you've won many times. Why is this so special?" And he said, "Because you never know which win is going to be your last," in a very kind of prophetic way. And certainly he just meant that you appreciate each thing because you may not win again. Not certainly I may not live another little while. But there's, one of the things Memorial Day is known for in the U.S. is the Indianapolis 500 and then the Coca-Cola 600. Which I think goes before the Indy, but anyway, and every year there's people who attempt to drive both, not people, one or two people, who drive one and then helicopter fly over to the next one and try and drive 600 miles in a stock car and then drive 500 miles in an Indy car. And it's just like nobody's ever really done well at that attempt, but it's one of the things in sports that people. So anyway, Kyle Busch was scheduled to drive the Coca-Cola 600. A couple of months ago, he finishes a race, and as he's coming into the pits he says, I need to see a doctor as soon as I get in. And he had a sinus cold, at which point they checked him into the hospital. And then, oh, by the way, didn't make it. Like, what? It's still, we don't know the exact cause. It's still the most bizarre story. But he's absolutely right, Phil is, in that I was talking to my brother, NASCAR guy, said, I was never a big fan of his, but this is terrible. And I was like, yeah, that's totally what Phil said. Is there's a lot of people just didn't like Kyle Busch and is on the track or anything, but he won and he was a champion, and that's what people are focusing on. Kyle, go ahead, Kyle. You're on next here on 570 News Radio.
Mr. Larry. Okay, so first thing, going back to racing, because I used to race, they call it the Triple Crown. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but the Triple Crown is I believe you have to win the Monaco Grand Prix in Formula One or the Formula One Championship. You have to win the Indy 500, and you have to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And then I think the Four Crown is if you add the Daytona 500. And I don't think anybody's actually ever gotten the Four Crown, but I know there's only been one or two drivers. You'll have to look it up that has won the Triple Crown. And this goes back like way in the day. His name was Damon Hill. So there you go. Kyle Busch. I mean, good driver. I never really was a NASCAR fan, but I totally respect the sport and the drivers there. So it's sad to hear. And one more thing, Larry, because Mike is away, and I'm not allowed to say the Montreal Canadiens on his show when he's around. And I hope the Farwell Force members don't email him or tell him I'm doing this, because last night was an amazing game. So let's go Habs. We could do it now. People are saying it's going to be a sweep, but look at that. 6-2 last night. Can't believe it. And Rangers play tonight. So here we go. First game of the Memorial Cup. We got this. Let's go, Rangers. Let's go. Woo! Thanks, Larry. Have a good weekend, buddy.
You too, Kyle. Thank you. I wanted to ask Kyle, that Triple Crown, I've never heard of that in racing. Do you have to win them all in the same year? Or is it a career thing, a career Triple Crown? Because I'm thinking in the same year would be almost impossible, Should we break or time before? Let's go to Maria before the break. Maria, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Hello, Larry. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty well, thank you.
Good.
I wanted to talk about baseball because I'm a big baseball fan.
Good. I love baseball.
I've been to Exhibition Stadium years ago, and so I was not at the first game like Dino was, but that's thrilling for Dino. I love that he was a coach for the Naylor brothers and Jordan Romano. That is so exciting for him, so congrats to Dino.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to talk about was the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, because they have an induction ceremony coming up on June the 20th. Maybe all your listeners out there are also interested in that.
Sure.
There are 6 inductees this year, including Devin White, who was from that original Blue Jays team way back at Exhibition Place. And anyone can look online at the baseballhallofFame.ca to see all the details about that. The induction ceremony itself is free, so that's something that maybe baseball fans don't know about. And there are other activities coming up to celebrate those inductees. So that's all I want to say about baseball. And, of course, go Rangers, go. And Kyle should not have done what he just did. So that's it. I love the team, the Rangers, and I love baseball. So thank you, Larry. Have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend.
You as well. Thank you, Maria. Great call. She was talking about Dino Roumel, by the way. He was the first guest on our show this morning at 9:30, the Guelph Royals coach who's hanging it up as a coach after this season, after 40 years of coaching, and he's going into the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame. So that was the Dino reference there. This is 570 News Radio, back in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Hey, Kyle, thanks for the call. I hope you're still listening. I just heard from the family gearhead, which is my brother, and that's actually his name on his birth certificate. So what can it was Graham Hill, not Damon Hill. It was actually Damon's father, Graham Hill, I think, had the Triple Crown, and it was and Triple Crown. And answer to my question was is a career win where you have to win those 3 races, which is what he said: 24-hour Le Mans, Monte Carlo, and Indy 500. Was that those 3? I think, but all open wheel. No, Le Mans is not open wheel. Oh, never mind. Anyway, I think it's that. So I can tell you exactly what my brother and I are going to be talking about later today. We'll be getting all that straight. And may I also add, for me personally, it is much more fun to exchange information between people than it is between me and Google. And if somewhere in there Google was involved, I have no problem. But Kyle said to me one thing. I said something to Kyle. I said it out loud. Somebody else heard me, said something to me. I'm saying it back to you. That's more fun, isn't it? Person to person to person. I have a thing now where, did I mention this? Anyway, I'm mentioning it again then. If I'm trying to think of something, I purposely don't Google it for as long as I can. If there's something that I know but I just can't remember, or I don't know but I need to know. And it's a little different. If I'm writing or if I'm on a deadline and I need to know what year did they start, was that? Oh, yeah, 1968. Okay, I look it up. I have no problem with efficiency when I'm working. But just in general terms of talking or pop culture or something pops into my mind, who used to sing that song with the to the and I remember the lyrics. I'll try and think of it on my own for as long as I can. A couple hours a day or two, if I'll let it go, and then just come back and go. And when you think of it yourself, you're like, oh my gosh, my brain still works. Synapses are still talking to each other. Thank you. Rather than just the mindless, what year was that? What day was he born? When did that war start? When did, bam, when you need to know it and Google has it, it's great, but it's just a better exercise, I think, for humanity, for us to try and think of things ourselves. So the next time we talk, it'll be game day again for the Memorial Cup. Go Rangers Go tonight. Action at 8:30 pregame with Mike Farwell and Josh Piercy. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike, and back again on Monday, where guess what? We'll be still again and more talking Go Rangers Go. Have a great weekend. We will talk soon.